morning, everyone. Oh, I like that. And to our correspondents from China, Ni Ha. Yeah. I keep diverse. We are now opening our hearing, a joint hearing, on the Committee of Public Safety and Economic Development and Global Opportunities and Creative Innovative Economies concerning resolution number 160829. Will the clerk please read the title of the resolution?
Resolution number 160829, authorizing Council's Committees on Public Safety, Commerce and Economic Development, and Global Opportunities and Creative Innovative Economy to hold public hearings concerning recent home invasions and armed robberies that have victimized Asian business owners in the city.
Thank you so much. On the panel today, we have Councilman Green, Councilman Dom, Councilman O, myself, and Councilman Gim. Greenlee. I'm sorry. No. All righty. And I would like to have the author of the resolution open hearings with a remark.
Thank you very much, Chairman. It is, number one, a pleasure and an honor for me to co-chair with Councilman Curtis Jones Jr. for a number of reasons. Public safety is his committee. That means law enforcement, among other things. but also commerce and economic development, of which many of the people that have been victimized are actually store owners. They have shops and they live above their shops. And so they have become targets, unfortunately, of criminal activity. While we have identified this resolution as Asian American businesses, they are predominantly Chinese American businesses. And of that, a large portion of them are actually Chinese takeout restaurants, where many of the people are struggling to make ends meet. They live in poor conditions. They have a store. They live above their store, and they have become the targets of criticism, ridicule, and now criminal violations in the manner of burglaries into their home with guns, and that threatens the seniors and their children and others. Today, it is important for us as a government interacting with our federal representatives, our county representatives, most importantly, our Philadelphia Police Department and District Attorney's Office, to show not only our citizens who are here today, but all of Philadelphia, that crime will not be tolerated, and particularly when that crime targets a specific group of people, whether they be LGBT, whether they be Muslims, whether they be Jewish, whether they be Arabs, whether they be Chinese merchants. When criminals begin to target a group of people specifically, that is a serious problem for everyone in Philadelphia. And so we have the opportunity today to better understand what is happening in terms of our city's response, to make sure that our city is in tune with what the people are thinking. Sometimes, despite every good effort of the city, there's a disconnect between government and the people. We want to make sure that that does not happen. And so we're going to hear from the victims and from the representatives of the community to make sure that our government is representing each and every person equally. And the great thing about our country is that we believe that all people should be afforded dignity, respect, and the constitutional protections. But our country is only as good as we make it and keep it. So with that, Chairman, thank you very much, and we'll begin with our witnesses.
Sheshe. Will the clerk please read the names? Oh, wait a minute. We have other comments from committeemen.
Yeah.
Councilman Jim.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate this. And thank you so much, Councilman O, for sponsoring the hearings on this very important issue. First of all, I just want to welcome everybody who came out today, and especially all the communities who organized to make sure that this is an important issue that gets addressed. I would also like to just piggyback on to my councilman's statements by saying, you know, the issues that we're dealing with are at the nexus of race and class, and where a lot of issues around biases and stereotypes, and as well the failure oftentimes of the city to provide appropriate language access to fully have the kinds of conversations that we need to have are at play. And because of that, I think this hearing requires us to listen very closely to one another, to listen very deeply. There are some elements here that go beyond the narrow, strict interpretations of the law and what people have the right to. And I think it's very important for all of us in this room, particularly those of us on the city and representative end of it, to be very open to hearing what is happening with our communities, especially with communities that don't feel like they have full language access dialogue with our city representatives, that we're very open to hearing all of that. I'm glad that the Commission on Human Relations is here and other entities that are also paying close attention to this issue, because it is a matter of law, but it's also a matter of community and society that we have to rebuild some of these bonds that are fracturing at our neighborhood level. So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the hearing.
Thank you, Councilwoman. If I heard my colleagues correctly, and one of the things that should be noted, crime is crime, and we get that. It happens in big cities. But when it targets a race or group of people, it constitutes a greater threat. When criminals victimize seniors, when criminals victimize people with language barriers, when criminals victimize folk because they perceive them to be vulnerable, that's when government steps up and provides that kind of support to reassure them that we are with them. So with that, would the clerk please read the witnesses to testify and their titles?
Captain Fran Healy, Lieutenant John Walker, Philadelphia Police Department. George Mosey, First Assistant District Attorney, Philadelphia District Attorney's Office. Percy Giles, Special Agent, FBI Philadelphia Division. Robert Reed, Executive Assistant, United States Attorney, U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Pennsylvania.
Thank you. Good morning, gentlemen. In
Good morning,
order,
sir. Good morning.
You know the drill. Pull the
Yes,
mic
sir.
close to you, state your name for the record, and begin your testimony, please.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Chairman Jones and Chairman O and other members of council. My name is Francis Healy, and I'm Special Advisor to Commissioner Ross. And with me, to my right, is Lieutenant John Walker from the Philadelphia Police Department, Southwest Police Detective Division. First, on behalf of Commissioner Ross, who's unable to be here today, I'd like to thank you for including the department in these proceedings. The issue before this committee is home invasion robberies, and specifically home invasion robberies targeting Asian business owners. Nonetheless, and irrespective of race, ethnicity, or origins, invading one's home to threaten, harm, or intimidate forever destroys something sacred in all of us. Home is the last bastion where the average person or people can feel safe, so there's something specifically heinous when criminals attack in one's home. The comfort, security, and sanctity of the home is that most of us take for granted is forever lost to the victims of home invasion robberies. These heinous acts have increased across the Commonwealth and specifically in Philadelphia for the last several years in general, but also against our Asian communities. For example, in 2015, the Philadelphia Police Department reported a total of 908 home invasion robberies. 143, or 15.7% of these home invasions were committed against Asian/Indian households. In 2016 through August of this year, there were a total of 474 home invasions, with 76, or 16%, being committed against the Asian/home households. It was for this very reason that the Philadelphia Police Department supported additional state legislation to address the specific crime, and I'm very happy to report that as of on Friday, October 27th, 2016, Senate Bill 1062 was submitted to the governor's office for his approval. It is our strong hope that the governor will sign this legislation into law. This bill increases the maximum penalty for burglaries of a home where the intent is to seriously hurt someone within the home, or where during the course of the burglary the perpetrator commits or threatens to commit bodily injury to another person. The distinction would only apply to burglaries of the homes and would not automatically increase the sentences of the perpetrator, but would rather increase the maximum sentence for which a judge, within their discretion, could sentence the perpetrator. A crime that destroys the sanctity and security of a person's last refuge deserves to be addressed differently than a normal robbery or burglary. So the Philadelphia Police Department fully applauds the efforts of our state legislatures and believes this change will eventually have an intended effect of reversing the current trend in overall home invasion robberies in Philadelphia, as well as the rest of the state. It's at this point I'd like to hand off this testimony to Lieutenant John Walker of Southwest Detectives to discuss the efforts that he's specifically doing at the ground level with different task force and how he's just specifically dealing with the issue of Asian home invasion robberies. And after that point, we'd be happy to answer any questions you may have from the Philadelphia Police Department.
Thank you for your testimony. If it's the will of the co-chair and committee, we'll allow all of the panel to testify before we begin questions.
Yes.
Is that all right? Thank you.
Good morning, Council. John Walker, Lieutenant, Philadelphia Police Department, Southwest Detective Division. This disturbing trend of incidents started back, we could see it in 2008, where we had a series of home invasions that were occurring in people's homes just outside the city. They owned businesses in the Philadelphia area. They were being followed home by individuals who were tracking them, mostly by observations back then in 2008, but then as it advanced forward in 2009, 10, and 11, we saw them starting to use tracking devices on the cars. Through those years, we've arrested 7 different crews of individuals with the work of a task force that we created that included our partners at the state and local level and the federal agencies. The Federal Bureau of Investigations, Percy Giles is here with us now, Rob Reed was very instrumental in putting that group together, and Pearl Kim from Delaware County, who assisted us as this crime was observed by us, and then we started to build this out. We started outreach programs. We started going to the different counties. Pearl Kim chaired a lot of that for us. We went to Montgomery County, Delaware County, Philadelphia County, obviously, meeting with the Asian business owners, advising them what we were seeing, and giving them some suggestions on what we can do to improve. Through these investigations, it's no secret, it's out there as to why these people are committing these crimes. It's the old stereotypical idea that was out there that Asians don't use banks and they have a lot of money in their homes. So our education program was pretty much geared towards that and has been geared towards that and has been very successful in getting us information that we need to solve these crimes. In one of the incidents in 2012, which was the Terrence Downing crew, we clearly had about 7 home invasions that were occurring in Radnor and other sections in Delaware County. But we had a meeting, we brought the information out, and obviously the energy's out there. But we needed a little piece of information to help us out because we had nothing, and one of the business owners who was driving home one day just happens to look in his rearview mirror and he sees 2 cars and he believes they're following him. So he does what we asked him to do, go back to your place of business or drive to a police station and report that. Immediately he does. By the next day we get a source comes in and says these 2 guys from this area just bought these same 2 type of cars. In the most recent series of events, which occurred in 16, they kind of switched. They went to the Chinese corner stores, the business-owned food takeouts, and they were committing burglaries. There were a total of 13 that started in May 3rd of this year. The last one was on August 8th. On August 8th, we actually had a meeting scheduled at 2:30 in the afternoon with the Business Association in Chinatown, and one occurred actually that morning prior to the 2:30 meeting. So we had a ton of people attended that meeting. Again, our group was all together, our federal, state, and local partners. We all talked. We brought, as we always bring, we bring the Commerce Department in because the Commerce Department has some great things they're doing for digital improvements and also facade improvements, and they have the matching grants. We brought our partners from our victim service agencies in Center City, Philadelphia, the DA's office, Jennifer Lynn, and her crew come in and they explain what we can do as a government agency to help these individuals, and we try to allay those fears that are out there, that if you're not legal in this country, that you can't report a crime, because the only way we can react is if we have reported crime. So the good thing that came out of that one meeting was one of the gentlemen who was actually a victim of a robbery who did not report it. As a result of us building that trust at that meeting, that the councilman's, Jim and O attended, the gentleman came forward as a victim. The very next day when we got that tip to identify the individuals involved, he was one of our fact witnesses who came forward for us. So I think it's a continuum process of educating and building that trust, and I think we have a pretty good solid system in place at this time, but it always can be improved upon. The trust needs to continue to improve, and there's a lot of things we're doing in the department that can help, but when I look at statistics, again, they're important, but at the end of the day, if you get victimized, statistics mean absolutely nothing. So it's about engagement, and it's about managing these expectations, and I think the department has, from the captains in each district, we have 21 districts that have police district advisory councils that can be joined by anybody in the community. The second part, under Commissioner Ramsey, we started PSAs, our public service areas, which each are commanded by a lieutenant. Those people should be familiar to the owners of the business in that area, and that should be vocalized by us. We can do that better, and there's a meeting every month with the PSA lieutenant that can bring them things forward. A lot of the issues that have come up at the meetings most recently have been things that can be handled, I think, at the captain level of the districts, but it's a matter of communicating to the businesses when these meetings are being held and doing things a little bit differently. And one of the things we learn, as we always do in these sessions, we try to discuss ways to get information out quicker as we do with pizza delivery robberies that we have. We send emails out to the owners, but after the meeting I suggested that, I was told that some of these businesses don't have emails, they don't have fax machines, so we learned that we have to hand deliver flyers out to people, which is, again, that's the importance of having the feedback coming back and forth between two, and the heated, or the conversation, although sometimes, is not good, it sometimes turns ugly, it's great. There's nothing wrong with conflict and providing information, because we have to understand what we need to do to improve and keep these businesses here, because let's face it, without businesses here, our economy fails. So we need these people here. We respect you all, and we want you all to tell us your issues, and we will work with you throughout this process. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
Good morning, Council.
Good morning.
I'm George Mosey, the First Assistant in the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office. Also, good morning to the members of the community. I'm going to try to avoid being redundant. An awful lot of what's included in my written testimony has already been covered. But I thought I might start by helping us all to be conscious of what crimes are being committed here, the crimes that can be prosecuted. And so if we put ourselves in the position of the victims of these crimes, imagine yourself coming home from work and you see that the door jamb is broken, you go into your home, your property is in disarray, items are missing, well, the sanctity of your home has been violated, your life is changed forever, you're the victim of a burglary. Second scenario, same situation, you come home from work, the door jamb is broken, but this time, when you enter the home, the perpetrator is there. Now, he didn't want you to come home when you did. He didn't expect you to come home, but now he's going to do whatever he has to do to avoid being arrested. That may mean pushing you, hurting you. He's going to do whatever he has to do to get out of your home. That burglary now includes the crime of robbery, because it's a robbery when even in the course of after committing a theft, you put the person in fear of bodily injury or you come into contact with them, however slightly. Third scenario, this time you're already in your home and you hear a knock at the door and armed, masked people come into your home. They tie you up with a belt or even the ties that you get from the Home Depot. They restrain you, they threaten you, they want to know where your property is, where your valuables are. Well, you see how this nightmare has escalated to the point where now the burglar wants you to be at home so that they can put you in fear. In fact, your life is threatened so that they can take your property. Well, these incidents, as has been testified, have increased over the years, but there are some characteristics that are common to all of these episodes. First of all, with regard to the Asian community, it's motivated by bias and stereotypes. The people who perpetrate these crimes are well prepared. They conduct surveillance. They make sure that they know when the victim comes and goes. As was testified to, they even use technology. They attach GPS devices to the automobile driven by the victim so that they'll know exactly the route that's taken by that person to get home if they're not following them, in fact. The offenders who commit these crimes are often members of crews that commit multiple home invasions. So it's not like we have hundreds of defendants in Philadelphia who are doing this. We have a select number of crews that do this. They use what we can refer to as forensic countermeasures. That's the gloves to make sure that there are no fingerprints. They almost always have masks on so that they can't be identified. They dismantle surveillance equipment. These incidents are well planned. Let's get to the motivation. As I said, it's based on stereotypes and bias. These are the stereotypical views held by these defendants. How do we know? After they're successfully prosecuted, they tell us about the motivation. So they believe that Asian businesses do business in cash. They believe that Asian businesses don't use banks. They believe that Asian business owners maintain large amounts of cash in their homes or in close proximity to where they sleep. They believe that cultural traditions would make Asian business owners ashamed and therefore less likely to report offenses to the police. They believe that Asian victims would be less able to make a cross-racial identification. They believe that Asian victims would be less likely to cooperate with the prosecution because of language barriers and potentially because of immigration concerns. I can tell you that with the help of the Philadelphia Police Department, Lieutenant Walker in particular, we've been able to belie almost all of these beliefs. And consistent with that, I can tell you that we're responding by making sure that these cases are vertically prosecuted. That means that one prosecutor is assigned from the very beginning to see the case through. We collaborate with all law enforcement within Philadelphia and outside of Philadelphia because, unfortunately, these crimes often follow the victim to a home that's outside the city limits. We work with the police department, the county police, of course, the U.S. Attorney's Office. My good friend Rob Reed is here today. And we have members of our office. You heard mention of Jennifer Lynn, and she works with the Center City Crime Victims Association. They're all Mandarin speakers, and they've been able to break down those barriers that the offenders believe would preclude victims from accessing the system and effectively bringing these people to justice. So as I indicated, I want to make this perfectly clear. Those were stereotypical views held by the offenders. I believe that the reality dictates otherwise. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. If I, all right, but no, wait a minute. Can you go back? Give me a second, because at my age I kind of lose stuff. Yes, Mr. Chairman. Two things. What I appreciate about our law enforcement in Philadelphia is that many of their countermeasures, police countermeasures, are statistically driven. So I want to, if you cannot answer these questions, that's fine. Can you provide these answers to the chair and committee? How many of these merchants that have been victimized are on our commercial corridors? Meaning, there are over 100 commercial corridors in the city of Philadelphia. How many of the victims, whether it's through acts of robbery on the corridor at the business location or followed home, as you mentioned, which terrified me with GPS, how many of them are corridor businesses? And if you don't know that, that's fine. There's no.
At this time, I don't know if our data breaks down in that manner, but I can find out if we do or we don't. I don't know, honestly.
So I'd like to get that statistic. The second thing that I'd like to know is how many of these crews transcend just entrepreneurs, because there are three types of prominent home invasions that I've followed as chair of public safety. Seniors are victimized. People are following them from banking institutions. Similarly, businesses are followed from their place of business. And then the third category of, quote, victim are people that are allegedly involved in drug businesses. So my question becomes, statistically, we need to see what the target of opportunities are, and then are these crews transcending those three basic categories?
We're back up now. Statistically wise, it'd be difficult to give that. I can tell you from the historical 7 groups that we've dealt with, and this being the 8th, majority of those have not transitioned into the elder communities.
So they're special.
They're specially identified, targeting the Asian community in the 7 that we've attacked so far and are currently in custody. Do they transition over to the narcotics trade? I think some may have, from what our data tells us and what we've talked to them about. But the majority of their focus in the groups that we've identified from 08 forward have been targeting Asians specifically for those reasons that were identified.
So in the future, if you can provide that
break it out.
Similarity, that might be helpful.
But I would point out that the groups that you just mentioned all have one thing in common in terms of the perception of the offenders. they believe that those are people who have cash on hand.
Got it. Are any of them in the victims also then intimidated, witness intimidation? Are they coming back and trying to dissuade them from testifying? And how many, are some of these crimes going unreported? I think I should have asked that question first, because of the shame aspect.
Well, that's a difficult question to answer, because if that has been the impact, then we don't know about it. It's
Yeah, I
not
would
reported.
imagine. But that's something that we should keep an eye towards as well.
But that does bring to mind something that's really relevant to this situation. You know, people might ask, why doesn't this crime, why don't these acts warrant a charge of ethnic intimidation? You know, you talked about intimidation. It's because the ethnic intimidation statute creates a threshold that's almost impossible to meet. It requires that you get into the mind of the defendant and actually establish that they did what they did because they hated the group that they perpetrated the crime against. We don't have evidence of that. In fact, the information that's provided to us would seem to indicate that the motivations are what I talked about earlier. The belief that they have cash on hand, the belief that they won't cooperate with the authorities, and not some hatred of the Asian people.
I'm going to turn it over to, I didn't see, I'm going to go from left to right. Also, we've been joined by Councilman, the real Councilman Green, and also Councilman Squilla and Councilwoman Blackwell. I'm going to go with Councilman Dom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, everybody, for attending today. Thank you to the panel. Good morning. I have a couple of questions, 3 or 4 questions. One is on the statistics from the police department. If I'm reading the information correctly, in 2015, there were 908 home invasions. That was about 76 per month. In 2016, there's 474 through August. That's about 59 per month. It's a 20% drop. Is the police department doing something differently? Because it clearly is on a path to be a lot less than it was in 15 than it will be in 16.
Sir, those data only go through August of this year.
I know that, but if I take the math and I take 474 divided by 8 months, I come out at 59 per month. If I take the math of 15, I'm at 76 per month. All I'm saying is that we've dropped 20% from the 15 invasions to the 16, even counting monthly analysis.
Averaging is not necessarily the way I can answer your question. I mean, I can't tell you, hypothetically, there's only going to be so much. That kind of makes no sense from the statistical perspective for me to answer that question. I'd like to answer the question and happily say.
That's what I'm saying, David.
Councilwoman, I mean, many of people can't hear.
Oh, okay. Councilman, all due respect, I would love to say, yes, we've done something that definitely, but I think without the concrete data, because it's not on average, not on average crimes. As the lieutenant mentioned, these are targeted individuals based on groups of criminals targeting, so there could be a flux in one month over the other. So until the end of the year is completed, I don't think it would be fair to speculate on the data. So, I mean, I would love to say, yes, we've done something to reduce it by 20%, but I don't think that would necessarily be fair for me to say at this point.
But it's a big difference right now so far, because you're different 17 per month of 8 months. That's a lot. You're not going to make that up in the next 4 months, thank God. I don't think that'll happen. So that should be, maybe you should look at what you did in 15 versus 16 if there was something that was done differently.
Well, what I will say is, and it's the issue why I brought Lieutenant Walker here, we have a task force that is actually addressing specifically Asian crimes, so hopefully they are having an impact long term. And I also believe the new legislation will actually help create synergy in that respect as well.
Let me ask you a second question. You know, when I was always taught, when I was 13 years old, I went to a home that was being robbed. And I was always taught, as soon as you go to the door, if something's happening, do not go in. Walk away, go to a safe place, call the police. So in the instance, the district attorney talked about an instance where you go up to the home and the jam's broken and you walk in. We should be educating everybody not to walk in, because there's 2 instances there, one when there's nobody there and one when there is somebody there. So there's a big piece of education that has to go on with business owners. When you see that crime, do not go in your home. Leave immediately, go to a safe harbor, call the police. And the biggest piece of this, though, besides, and it goes with education, is cash. You have to change the whole concept. I'm in the restaurant business also. I don't want cash. I want credit. I do not want cash. I want credit. And we have to educate everybody that that's so important. So we change the whole equation of what people who are robbing stores, et cetera, understand. There's no cash there. It's credit now. So we have to figure out a way to educate business owners to push people to credit so they don't have the cash. That's very important because that'll take care of most of the situations. If there's no cash there, no one's really going there. They're going there because they think there's cash. As you said, District Attorney, they think there's a lot of cash, so they're going there. But if it was credit and they had nothing, you'll eliminate some of this stuff. And these are just suggestions, but I think if we could educate the restaurant owners how important credit is today versus cash, it would go a long way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman again.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, and again, thank you so much to our first panel for bringing up the issues today. You know, one thing that I do want to be a little bit careful about, because I know that there's been some mention about Asian Americans, you know, being ashamed, and I think the turnout here today shows very clearly that people here are not ashamed to come forward and talk about some serious issues. And that, in fact, you know, I want to be very careful about this use of the fact that people aren't coming forward because they're ashamed. Because I think in previewing, if I can, and apologies to people who are going to testify in the future, I really appreciate the testimony of those, the testimony that was submitted by a number of people beforehand. And it's in part because it gives us some indication about why people don't feel like they're getting responded to and why they then turn away from institutions that should be supporting them. The number one issue that a number of victims who are going to testify later repeatedly discuss is the inability to get language access at the point of most urgent need. And that's specifically at the point in which they contact contact 911 and at the request to get outreach to the police department immediately. Those are not acts of shame. Those are actually major barriers. So I think that Ms. Lau from Center City Crime Victim Services will be testifying later, but based on a series of responses that she gave, she noted that of the 185 business owners, 45% said that they did not get connected to language line even after calling 911. 75% of victims of crime do contact the police, so there's clearly not a shame issue that's at play. They don't have a problem contacting the police. But the problem is that the main reason, 68% who do not like calling police say the main reason is a language barrier, that they simply do not get language access at the point that they call the police, and that is their number one fear and concern. Additionally, 58% of people who responded about the question of did the 911 receptionist offer you language line, 58% of them said no, that they did not, either were neutral or strongly disagreed with that. And that actually, you know, one of the good things for our police department to understand is that once they do actually get in contact with the police, most people feel like they were listened to, they were heard, but they can't get to you. And so I guess one of my questions is, does the police department meet regularly with victim advocates who represent LEP communities to understand these barriers that are happening?
To answer your question, ma'am, yes, we do. The Philadelphia Police Department LEP, Limited English Language Proficiency Policy, was worked out, I believe in 2011 or 12, with the Justice Department, to aim towards having one of the best policies in the country. We have a policy in place now, not only language line, we have in-house interpreters, PPT authorized interpreters that we've actually made sure they actually can speak the language and actually not just speak the language, but actually are educated in how to actually do the translation. We also have also have an in-person translating service that's available more so for the investigators to use during interrogations or questioning. The frontline point, let me just say this. If you're saying that that is a bigger problem, then I will take that back to my police radio, because we do have language line access, and whenever the call takers can't obviously communicate well, it's supposed to be an automatic. We have an automatic one-button push, and it ends up in a three-way conversation with our with our call taker, the complaint, and language line. And that's almost every language you can possibly think of. But if that's not being used effectively, or if certain communities don't think they're being heard, like I said, I meet regularly with a lot of the individuals from the language line, but I'll be very honest with you, a lot of the issues are more Spanish than they are some of the Asian communities. So that is something I will definitely look into with our police radio. I mean, that's an easy call. I go downstairs and figure out, make sure that we're doing the right thing, because we have an outstanding policy, but I need to make sure it's actually working in practice. I can double check with that. That's absolutely easy.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because I think that's actually a very important aspect, that it's not just about who's using it, but whether communities actually feel like they can get access to it. But I guess my question was, you used to meet with PIC every once in a while, like PIC had a roundtable on public safety. How long has that, when was the most recent time you met?
I'll say probably 2 or 3 months ago, the latest meeting that I can recall, that I sat down with the individuals.
And if you could continue that, I think that that's really important, because I know that a number of the communities that had been around the public safety roundtable, certainly when I was part of it, at least 2 years ago, had primarily referenced language access and continuing issues around language access with the police department. And could you just repeat again, what percentage of could you tell me a little bit more about your demographics for the police department, and what percentage might represent Asian American communities, and specifically languages?
The actual language of the officers, or the language of our dispatch, or our interpreters?
Either.
I can get them back to you. I don't have them, I wasn't prepared for that information, but I can get that information for you. The demographics of the department itself, as well as the languages that we speak in-house. Yes, I'll get you that.
Captain, if you would provide that to the chair, I'll report to the chair, I'll distribute it to everybody
that's
else
great.
on behalf of Councilman Jones as well.
And my last question is, who's responsible for the police department for liaisoning directly with Asian American communities and communities that are concerned about some of these issues that are going on?
Well, as the Lieutenant mentioned, it's everyone's responsibility. I mean, we have our PSAs, which the PSA lieutenants are responsible to know who's in their PSA areas, their police service areas, as well as the communities, the business owners. It's the captain's responsibility, but it goes up to as high as a deputy commissioner. Deputy Commissioner Christine Coulter is the designated liaison between the department and the Asian community. So she meets regularly with different elements of there's always people in her office meeting with her. So she's actually the department liaison, but that responsibility filters all the way down to the captain and to the lieutenant, as well as to the individual officer on the street. So we take it important. I mean, and we have for several other commissioners prior, but Commissioner Ross has made it a very big point.
And is she here today?
Commissioner Ross is not here. He can't be here.
No,
I'm sorry. No,
Commissioner
Christine
Ross.
called it. Both of them have other engagements, so that's why I'm here.
Yes, I know that Commissioner Ross isn't here. I meant that your deputy commissioner who is responsible for liaisoning with the Asian American community, is she here today?
She's not here, no.
Okay. So, so that's helpful to know that she's there, and I'm sure that it will be important for other people to know that she's the person to contact, but I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank
Chair.
you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Blackwell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to thank these three individuals with whom we work. You know, it's amazing. In days past, when we came up with the whole stop and go name, and we had so many positive meetings together, and with the communities, who would have thought that we would come this far and that we would have these kind of fights, because we have worked together so long and with the community so long. So I want to thank them, because they were there. And in fact, Lieutenant Walker I talk with whenever, I must be ashamed to say. And the others get a little more respect, but I mean, he might talk to me at 11 at night, and I'll try to do better. And but I wanted to say thank you. I know these are the right people, the committed people, and if we are to do our part to turn this issue around and to make life better, it would be with their leadership. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you,
gentlemen.
Councilwoman. Two quick things that before we let you go. One, we appreciate the fact that there is multi-tiered collaboration between departments, agencies, both at the federal, that gives us comfort. Number two, I appreciate the comments about diversity, language barriers, including in the workforce, people who can relate culturally. Not that you're not doing that, but that is something that we look to as a solution. The third thing, which I've conferred with my co-chair about, is that, and the reason why I asked about commercial corridors is because geography plays a part in this too. That if they know these are targets of opportunity and where they are, they can be followed and things like that. And critical clues can be picked up if we know that geography. So what I'm going to confer with my colleagues about is introducing a resolution on Thursday calling for surveillance cameras on all of the 100 commercial corridors we have. Not all at once, budgetarily maybe we can't do it that way, but over a finite period of time, because it protects everyone, not just the merchant, but the customers that patronize the stores. It protects people and gives a better clue to law enforcement about who these perpetrators are. And hopefully it will also not only serve as a silent witness, but also a deterrent, and in some degrees. These are bold people, and you mentioned how they disable security systems, but if we have them in our commercial corridors run by our law enforcement agencies, that might be a redundancy in surveillance that might be helpful.
Yes, at this time, Chairman, I know that Councilman Derek Green has a question. I'd just like to remind everybody, this is the first half of the panel. We have the FBI, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and the Delaware County DA's office to go before we get to our victims and then community witnesses. So I'll be the bad guy and try to keep us on time. Councilman?
Thank you, Chairman. I just have some questions. I wanted to follow up on the line of questioning that Councilwoman Gim raised regarding language access. Many people in this room know that I previously served as a prosecutor both here in Philadelphia and also in Delaware. And so one of the questions I have is when you talk about language access, and you also talked about community meetings between the police department, district attorney's office, and merchants, especially in the Asian American community. What type of information has been provided to inform merchants who possibly could be victims of crime, how they should report information through 911, and that language access is available? Not only education of merchants, but also educating people on police radio that if you have someone calling in that may have a dialect that may have an accent, that they should provide information to them regarding the accessibility to language access.
Well, what I will say is our language access, we have a very, very strong policy. Now, what I'll say is if there's something falling between the cracks there, I'll look into that this afternoon as soon as I leave here. But the issue is language line is actually very effective. As soon as the the call takers that receive the calls, they can't understand. They automatically, it's a one-button call, two language line, which creates a three-person call, and then that person from language line can kind of figure out the language, because oftentimes you may not even know the type of language that an individual is speaking. So we have that in place. We use it effectively. But like I said, if individuals are not getting the service they believe they should from police radio, that is something I'll definitely look into. Like I said, it's quick as a button. It's a one-button push-in. That's what we installed in police radio. So it's a very small period of time for that delay. Seconds we're talking about.
Okay. So in your meetings with representatives of the community, are you letting people know that language access information is available if they do call 911? Because the information is a two-way street, not only making sure that people in police radio have that information, but also people in the community know that if I need to call, I can call and people have access to language translators.
What I will say is I deal with different different groups, PIC being one of them, so I spread that message out through them, and I ask for their help to spread that message. But if we can do a better job relaying that, we have language identification cards for individuals that we hand out, and they point to their language, and that's why it helps expedite getting them the services they needed. But it's always something I can revisit. I mean, there's a lot of people who get frustrated, and then will just not hang up or whatever the case, and that's not acceptable. So I'll look into it, see how we can do it better, but we have a good policy. I just need to make sure it's being done correctly, and I will look into that. The language access cards are actually very good for the officers on the street, because they actually, if you can't understand, you hand the card, and that individual can actually, it's a list of statements in a whole bunch of different languages, and the individual can point to a line, and this way, at least we know the language that they speak. That helps to expedite a lot of the services through police radio and actually through the police department as well. But we do our best to try to accommodate. It's not something we've ignored. We actually took the reins, quite frankly, several years back to make sure that we did have one of the strongest police department policies. When Global Philadelphia had initiated several years back, we were on the first front runners out there, making sure that we did all the changes, because we understand this is not just, and I don't mean to say this in a harsh way, it's not just a community relations issue, this is a civil rights issue. People have a civil right to access to government services, so it's not just something that we should do, it's something we have to do. And we do it when we're happy to do it, but we need to make sure we do it right, and we're constantly evolving to make sure we do it better. So I'll look into those issues. I'm concerned that people call radio and they're not getting the service. That upsets me. So I will look into radio and see how we can look into that and make sure that doesn't happen, quite frankly.
Also, in your testimony, you talked about safety tips that you provide to the community, and I'm curious what are some of those tips? Because certain patterns I see occurring based on the testimony from some of the witnesses. For example, when I was in banking, especially when I was focused on retail banking, and when we had robberies, we trained our branch managers that, when you open the branch in the morning, don't use the same routine every day. These you have certain signals in the branch that if the first person comes to the branch, they know that the signal for that week is the shades are turned a certain way. And if you don't see the shades turned a certain way, to not come into the branch, and to not always close or open the branch at the same time. What are some of the safety tips that you're providing to merchants so they know they should be changing their patterns of operation, so that people who are engaged in these type of criminal activities tend to stalk and watch people based on their activities? So what type of information and tips are you providing merchants on how to change their operations so they're not more likely to be engaged or be victims of crime?
Councilman, again, a lot of these things we've done at these meetings, we've learned. In 2008, when the first pattern we saw of people being followed home, we realized that our investigators, especially in the townships, weren't answering that question, do you own a business somewhere? So we caught that, and in the Radnor meeting in 2008, we had 31 different police agencies there to discuss that, and through the department, I started talking to the investigators and saying, make sure you ask that question when someone becomes a victim. Do you own a business? Could you have been followed home? So those things are evolving, and the outreach programs that we've done throughout the different counties are exactly doing that. We're talking to people about, don't do the same thing every day. Using banks, maybe using different branches. Don't go to the same bank every day at the same time. Unfortunately, it's a struggle. I mean, I come from a family, we had a business in Southwest Philadelphia for 33 years, a small business, and I understand the struggles. I mean, you're working 14 hours a day. It's tough to tell people to change their times and ways of doing things. But there are other ways we can do things. The police department has a roll call complaint board where every officer, every tour gets information on checks they should make. So you can call a district and ask to be part of that roll call complaint procedure where your business is checked at opening, closing, maybe one time during the day. The Commerce Department has been partnered with us during this program, offering ways for people to offset the cost of surveillance equipment. They pay up to $1,800 for that, facade improvements, lighting improvements, and then being engaged with our Police District Advisory Council and our PSA lieutenants to make sure that those issues are being brought forward. A lot of these things are nuisance-type crimes that can be dealt with at that local level, and if they're bigger than that, then let us know. I mean, Councilman O just provided us with information on some service that didn't happen. We need to know that, and we need to know that right away so that we can improve upon that. And if we know it, we can improve, we work together, we can resolve these issues, but we need to clearly work with the community, be engaged, and make sure the expectations are right, but make sure we're doing the right thing by doing our checks and balances, and I think we're on the right path. It's just we need to continue to improve this.
And so, are you also using like police logs where you're encouraging officers, especially in the local patrol, to come into stores and sign a police log to say that they've been in that store and those type of things as well?
And that's another option. If anyone in the room has a business, you do have an opportunity to contact your local district and ask the captain to put a police log in your place of business. We have a community relations officer, crime prevention officer in every district in the city. So we will do that as part of a strategy, try to get out there, but we hope that people will make those calls also to put that police log in there, which requires an officer at least twice a tour to sign it. And also, if you feel something's going on, you got a crowd out there, it's unruly on a daily basis, call and ask for a roll call complaint, and you'll get more checks on your business.
And also, looking at the witness list from the chair, it seems that we're having Delaware County DA's office involved in this conversation. I'm assuming you're collaborating with other law enforcement jurisdictions around the city. Typically, when you have these type of crimes, it's a certain pattern because criminals have a certain pattern they try to engage in. I know you can't talk about it in an open investigation, but my question is, in your conversations with neighboring law enforcement jurisdictions, are you able to see certain patterns and you identify certain crews you think that may be involved in this process?
No doubt about it. I mean, it's early on in 2008 when we first started this, we had Pennsylvania State Police, their PASIC unit was engaged in this, so if they were seeing cars being stopped in the community, they reported it. So the FBI is engaged with us clearly in this task force. So patterns in this particular situation were easy to see. In the most recent one that started in May, we saw the corner store pattern. It was in Southwest Philly, predominantly in West Philly, but it moved into Northwest. So my peer up there, I spoke with him immediately. We talked with our detective bureau. We put it out to every patrol car, that information, so they were alerted to the types of places, and it was pretty tight. It was 4 to 6 a.m. where they were going into these businesses to commit the burglaries, obviously because the businesses were closing. So we were very fortunate to get a tip pretty quickly and to take these people into custody. And again, in my 7, 8 years of dealing with this now, they clearly could see that the education, working with the community, piece of information, it's definitely improving because the first series and method of operation, which was the follow homes, seem to have subsided now. Most of those people are in custody serving long sentence terms, and I think that's the important part of this. It's not only the community and the police, but then it's the DA's office and the U.S. Attorney's office who are taking this and verbally prosecuting these cases and sending a clear message to people: you will not do this, you will not target people, because it's a clear, in our minds, a civil rights violation. We're just not going to have people target people in the city.
Okay. Last question. Typically, when you have these type of specific criminal activities that are targeted on a specific community and has a certain pattern, and resources are dedicated, targeted to address this issue. Has that occurred in this situation?
Yes. We dedicated immediately detectives from both Northwest, Southwest. We brought in Percy Giles from the FBI to engage with our team. In the 15 case that we talk about, it was actually in Southwest Philly. Store owner, beer distributor, Southwest Philly. Turns out his brother actually works for him. He's Korean. His brother owns the store. We got information that they put a tracker on his car, and he lives out in Chester County.
GPS, right.
Percy Giles was with me at the time. In our office at 12 o'clock at night, we checked his car. We didn't find the tracker. Well, lo and behold, he goes home at just after midnight, and they're in his house. Thank God we're in touch with him. He doesn't go in. State police are out there working with us. They're engaged with us. They're at the house. The car gets away. But at 3 o'clock in the morning, we catch the car coming back. Percy Giles, myself, and my group of detectives that were all assembled that quickly and caught the guy going into his house with the goods that were taken into burglary. So we feel we have a good group of people who are working hard. In this case, like on 2/27 of 15, clearly showed how the FBI was with us in that building at midnight, and how the state police worked with us, how they got the information back, and how we made an arrest within hours of the incident occurring.
Okay, thank you very much. We have one more question. What I'm going to say is it's 11 o'clock, and we're on the first half of our first panel, so I will, with my colleagues' consent, because we're all equals here, make the questions quicker and your answers shorter so we could get through everybody. Councilwoman Kim?
Thank you so much, Councilman, because I know that we want to move quickly, but Mr. Healy, and especially to the police department, I just wanted to give you a chance to just basically respond a little bit to a story in which a police department spokesperson was quoted as talking about Asian businesses moving into different neighborhoods. And, it raised a lot of concerns within a lot of the Asian communities, because the police department spokesperson said that when an Asian business comes in, the neighborhood is going down the wrong path. And that was in the Inquirer, and I wanted to make sure that, for a lot of communities who saw that and read that in the paper, it raises up additional concerns about making sure that there's a fair and equal response when they call and that there are urgent issues at play. So, I just wanted to give you a response to respond to it. We certainly sent the letter, but, I know that this is a more public forum.
Well, from the police department's perspective, I mean, we respond to all crimes and we care about all victims, regardless of where you live. The issue, I believe, that was said, I can't speak for the lieutenant, but in certain areas, these certain businesses are the only things that are out there. In certain parts of the city, you won't see a Wawa, you won't see a 7-Eleven, but you'll see small merchants out there trying to make a living in some very hard areas of the city. Regrettably, as a result of that, they become magnets, not that they're creating anything, but since they're oftentimes the only place to go to get food at certain points of the day, or I say the night, that they can be a magnet for some criminal activity. That's, I believe, the intent of what he was trying to say, but we're not saying any way, shape, or form that this community or this business community is the source of the criminal activity. That's not what we were meaning to say, if that's where you're going with that.
I wasn't going with it. I was saying that the police department spokesperson very clearly said that it was Asian businesses coming into a neighborhood. The neighborhood goes down the wrong path. That's totally different from saying that there are certain businesses that become locuses of crime. My issue was that the police department spokesperson, not an individual or random person, made a very clear racialized statement about a pretty serious situation that it impacts how we frame up the police department's response. And I just wanted to give you a chance to clarify that, but I certainly hope, again, the concern is that I assume that that person was not going to say it, that it is Asian businesses specifically that mean that when they come in, the neighborhood goes down the wrong turn, right?
I'm going to interrupt because what I'd like to do is, would you contact whomever that person was or their supervisor and provide some type of response? We don't know if that was an accurate quote or if it was. I'm not trying to excuse it, but we'd like to understand. I don't think you're the right person to answer that question, but we would like to get an answer, and I will distribute that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Clerk, would you call the next witness list?
Percy Giles, Special Agent, FBI, Philadelphia Division. Robert Reed, Executive Assistant, United States Attorney, U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Pennsylvania.
All right, could we start from my left, your right, and we'll just go down, starting with the FBI, and I think the Assistant DA might as well sit in there. Thank you.
Good morning, Council. My name is Percy Giles, Special Agent with the FBI, assigned to the Violent Crimes Task Force here in Philadelphia. And I'd just like to thank you all for having me. I'm honored to be here. I would say, I'll keep my comments pretty brief. Over the last several years, I've been involved specifically investigating crimes of this nature because when a particular group targets a certain nationality, we take it very seriously. So we bring federal resources to eradicate these crimes. So over the last couple of years, we've been able to successfully disrupt and dismantle these groups with various techniques, and I won't get into those techniques, but I will say that it was the number one thing that we use is collaborative efforts between state and local partners. We've got these groups together, we've shared information, state, local, and federal, and we've used all of our resources to combat this problem. And so with that being said, I would just say we need to continue our effort to bring everyone together from different communities and make sure that they understand that this is being addressed. We are looking into it and we are investigating these crimes, and we're bringing a lot of resources and time and energy to these investigations.
Thank you.
Good morning, Council. My name is Pearl Kim. I'm an Assistant District Attorney out in Delaware County. I am just here to support and facilitate any questions. The only comment that I would like to make is that I would like Council to know that I'm also a commissioner on the Governor's Advisory Commission on Asian American Affairs. It is a priority of the Commission to work on language access issues. I'm also on the Executive Committee for the Asian Pacific American Bar Association. We as a association and our community outreach is also working on language access issues. I'm also on several language access working groups, and fortunately I will be able to bring the language access issue to our next meeting for the Pennsylvania Commission Crime and Delinquency. I'm going to bring it to their attention as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much, and I will say that you have been involved in many of these cross-county issues with the FBI, U.S. Attorney's Office, the DA's office here in Philadelphia, and the Philadelphia Police. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name again is Robert Reed. I'm the Executive Assistant U.S. Attorney, and thank you for inviting me to speak. Let me just say that having spent more than 30 years in law enforcement with the U.S. Attorney's Office, I have seen much violence, as you can imagine, but these particular types of crimes are truly reprehensible because they are targeting an individual group based on their nationality, their culture, and it's just outrageous. Let me just say that we take it very seriously. I just want to speak very briefly about what we've done. In 2003, our office, that is U.S. Attorney's Office, working very closely with the FBI and the police department, started something called the Hobbs Act Robbery Task Force. What that means is we have federal jurisdiction to prosecute people who commit armed robberies of commercial establishments. From 2003 through 2016, we've continued to do that. In 2008, we saw that there was a number of crimes committed against the Asian community, particularly in the Upper Darby area, Southwest Philadelphia, and they included home invasions. We worked again very closely with the FBI, they're always our partners, with John Walker, the lieutenant from Southwest, who I've got to tell you is fantastic. Is he here? Well, I hope he heard the compliment. Anyway, and Pearl Kim, who has really done an amazing job being essentially a great collaborator and partner in these efforts. What we did see at that time was that there was some reluctance of people from the community to come forward, and it didn't really relate to language access. In fact, there was one case that was brought into federal court where, because the victims did not show up for sentencing, Pearl Kim and myself, we testified on behalf of the community, because we wanted the judge to know, the federal judge, to understand how serious we took this and why we believed a substantial sentence was appropriate. In the course of the time that we've done this task force, this Hobbs Act Robbery Task Force, we've prosecuted about 500 people. The average sentence is about 15 years without parole. That is unlike what you would get in the state system. We prosecuted 25 to 30 people who've been involved in Asian armed robberies, and the average sentence there is similarly about 15 years. Some people have gotten as many as 60 years in jail. That is 60, they have to do 58% of their sentence. And I don't know how many people who are out there contemplating committing crimes against the Asian community, but I will say if it comes in the federal court, they face certain conviction, because we convict almost 95% or more of the people who commit these crimes. Number two, their choices are pretty daunting. They're going to go to jail for a long period of time, or they have to cooperate. What we find as a result of our investigations is that many of the people who commit these crimes, while we may have only originally known that they did 1 or 2 or 3, ultimately confess to doing many others. And so that's a very important device that we have, or tool that we have, to investigate and prosecute other cases. We actually oftentimes, and I will say over the years, have been able to obtain evidence that's led to solving homicides and other very serious crimes, which we turn over to the district attorney's office. So we will continue to work very closely with the Asian community. We have excellent partnerships. We have done a lot of outreach to the Asian community over the years. And I will say it is very exciting for me to see all of the people here from the community. I think it's fantastic. I just want them to know that in addition to the police department and the district attorney's office, the people in the federal government are totally supportive of them. We will make every effort to make sure that these crimes do not continue. They can contact us directly, they can contact me directly, and we'll do everything we can to stop them.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Okay, I've discouraged everyone enough, I'm sorry. But thank you very much. Oh, if you could stick around a little bit, I know you're all busy. If you got to go, you have to go, but if you could stick around a little bit, we will be bringing up some of our victims at this point in time. Thank you. Clerk, would you call the next panel?
Yongzhen Yu, witness X, who wishes to remain anonymous and whose statement will be read into the record by Stephanie Sun, Outreach Specialist for Small Business Development of the Welcoming Center for New Pennsylvanians, Li Fang Li, Yu Ming Wang.
As they approach, I will note that, number one, in case anyone did not know, your testimony is being televised at this point in time. Those cameras are live, so in addition to the news, right now, as you testify, there are our city folks, many of our council staff are watching. Secondly, we do have translation because some of our witnesses cannot speak English. And finally, we have witnesses who don't want to come forward because they don't want to be victimized when they get back to their neighborhood. That is a concern, and so we do have one witness that asked to be anonymous. She will testify, however, we're not going to provide her name. She will be witness X. So with that, I'll ask the first witness to testify.
各位议员好，大家好。
Good morning, council members. Good morning, everyone.
I'm sorry, Stephanie, would you move the mic closer to your...
Okay.
Yes,
Is it okay?
thank
No.
you.
Okay, thank you.
And speak loudly.
Yeah.
各位议员好，
Good morning, council members.
大家好。
Good morning, everyone.
我叫于远珍，
My name's Yongzhen Yu.
我和我先生住在费城1023 West Wascom Street， 经营一家名为 China Garden 的中餐馆。
Me and my husband own and run the Chinese takeout restaurant, China Garden, and 1023 West Robscombe Street, Philadelphia.
我也是2个孩子的妈妈，这是我的女儿吉娜，10岁。
And also a mother of 2 children, and this is my 10-year-old daughter, Gina.
这是我8岁的儿子 Eric。
This is my 8 years old son, Eric.
It's okay.
我们的餐馆在1楼，我们一家4口住在2楼。
Our restaurant is on the first floor, and our family lives in the second floor.
今年6月9日凌晨4点45分左右，我们家被2个人面入室持枪抢劫的。
This past June 9th, about 4:45 a.m., our family was victim of an armed burglary by 2 masked men.
歹徒是从窗户爬进我和我先生在2楼的卧室，当时我们全家人都在熟睡中。
The robbers entered our bedroom on the second floor through the window when our family were all in deep sleep.
我突然被强光照醒，眼睛便看见一只照射我眼睛的手电筒和一支正指着我额头的枪。
I was suddenly waken up by a strong light, and when I opened my eyes, I just saw a flashlight blinding me and a gun pointed at my forehead.
一个蒙面男人说抢劫，
A masked man said robbery.
另一个用枪指着我丈夫，让我丈夫举起头面对墙壁。
Another pointed my husband with a gun and asked my husband to face the wall with hands up.
他们在我们卧室翻墙了大概10分钟，抢得了手机、电脑和3000多的现金。
They robbed our bedroom for about 10 minutes, stealing mobile phones, a laptop, and over $3,000 cash.
然后一个人一直用枪指着我和我先生，另一个人打开了我孩子们的房门。
One of them continued to point the gun at me and my husband, and the other opened the door to my children's bedroom.
那个劫匪拽出了我半睡半醒的儿子，拎着他的睡衣领，把他拽到我们的房间。
He put out my half-asleep son, tugging at his pajamas collar, dragged him to our room.
我赶紧一把上前抱过来，他把他盖在我的被子下。
I hurriedly went forward to embrace my son and covered him with my blanket.
这时我听见了好几声用力撞墙的声音，很大声。
At this moment, I heard pounding on the walls.
紧接着，歹徒一手用枪指着我女儿的太阳穴，一手狠狠拽着我女儿的衣服，把她拽进了我们的房间。
Then the robber, with one hand holding a gun pointed at my daughter's temple, and the other hand ruthlessly tugging at my daughter's pajamas, dragged her into our room.
后来才知道，那声音是歹徒抓住我女儿的头，用力仿佛往墙上撞的声音。
Afterwards, we got to know that the hard war sounds we heard were the sounds made by the robber by strongly hitting my daughter's head over and over again against the wall.
在座的各位父母，我相信你们知道我心里会有多痛。
If you are a parent in this room, I believe you know how much my heart ached.
歹徒用枪指着我女儿的头，对我们吼：“哪里还有钱？”
The robber pointed at my daughter's temple with a gun, yelled at us, "More money!"
我求他们放过我的孩子，告诉了他们我其他钱放的位置。
I begged them to let go of my children and and told them the location of more cash.
在他去拿现金大概7000元左右，我赶紧把我女儿抱过来。
When they went to get the cash, which was over $7,000 US, I quickly grabbed my daughter and hugged her.
我女儿一直浑身颤抖地对我说：“妈妈，他们好可怕，我好害怕。”
My daughter's whole body was shaking, and she said that, "Mom, I'm so scared. I'm so scared. They're so scary."
我告诉她别害怕，我们一起向上帝祷告，保守我们，让他们快走。
I told her, "Don't be afraid. Let's pray to God to protect us and let them go soon."
他们两人在我们家一共行抢了大概25分钟左右。
The two robbed our house for around 25 minutes.
直到我听到他们开车离开的声音，我们才下楼用餐厅座机打电话报警，因为我们的手机全被抢走了。
When we heard the car drive away, we went downstairs to call the police with our restaurant phone, since our cell phones were all stolen.
我和我先生英文不太好，所以我们让我女儿打电话报警。
Me and my husband's English is not so good, so we led our daughter to call the police.
我们非常惊讶，警车10分钟之后就到了。因为我以前也报警很多次，但每次至少都要等几个小时，有时等一天。
We were very surprised that the police arrived after only 10 minutes, because I also called 911 so many times, but every time we have to wait at least for a couple of hours, even sometimes for one whole day.
我们不知道这个差别是不是因为我女儿的母语是英语，听起来和本土美国人一模一样，而我每次报警一开口就听出了来是中国人。
We don't know if the reason for this difference is because my daughter is a native speaker of English, sounding exactly the same as a local American, but my accent always tells them we're Chinese or Asian once we open our mouths.
我周围的中国朋友都和我们一样，即便被严重骚扰和打劫，每次报警都要等好几个小时或一整天，但只要是其他族裔的人报警，即便是因为很小的事，即便就是站在我们面前的顾客，警察都总是几分钟之内就到了。
Our Chinese American friends all experience the same as us. Even for very serious harassment and burglary, they also have to wait for the police to come for a couple of hours, and even a whole day after calling 911. But as long as the call is made by other ethnic people, like our customers standing right in front of us, even just for much less serious issues like arguments, the police always arrive within only a few minutes.
我很想更好的和警方沟通。
I really hope to communicate well with the police.
好几次报警时，我问能不能有中文翻译，每次都被告知没有中文翻译。
Several times when I called the police, I asked for the Mandarin interpreter, but the 911 operators told me each time that they don't have an interpreter.
不论如何，和其他受害持枪抢劫的中国移民朋友比起来，我们一家还是很幸运的。
Compared to other Chinese immigrants and business owners that suffered from robberies, our family was very lucky.
8月8日，在中国城召开安保会议后，很多媒体报道了此事。
After the security meeting in Chinatown on August 8th, many media reported this issue.
有市民看新闻后，依据线索发现了疑犯，通知警方去抓住了歹徒。
An audience reported the suspect to the police according to the clues in the news.
9月，我们也积极配合警方指证和上法庭陈述，已将罪犯送进大牢。
In September, we actively cooperate with the police to identify the suspect, went to the court for testimony, and sent the criminal to jail already.
但抢劫其他中国业主的罪犯，很多仍未被惩治于法。
But many criminals robbing Chinese business still have not been caught.
所以我真心希望其他华裔业主能和我一样幸运，让罪犯知道我们华裔业主也是受到警察和法律保护的。
So I really hope other Chinese immigrant business owners can be as lucky as me to let the criminals know that we, Chinese immigrants, Asian immigrants, are also protected by the police, by the government, and by the law.
我女儿案发后近2个星期不敢睡觉，每晚都哭。
During the first 2 weeks after the armed robbery, my daughter couldn't sleep and cried every night.
到现在，她睡觉一定要放手电筒在枕头旁，一定很紧地抱着洋娃娃，只要轻轻碰到它，就会很猛烈地醒来。
Now she must hold very tightly the doll with the flashlight next to the pillow when she sleeps, and is very easily waken up easily by any gentle touching.
一周至少1次到2次做暴力的噩梦，拳打脚踢。
At least once or twice a week, he has violent nightmares, during which he kicks and blows.
醒来后，我问他梦见了什么，他总是哭着说：“那个门面人一直朝我走来，太恐怖了。”
I asked her what she dreamed about. She always cried and say, "That masked man was coming up to me, so scary."
于是我们意识到，他一直在重复一样的噩梦，这是那次抢劫留下的阴影。
Then we realized that she has been repeating the same nightmare, which is psychological scar made by the armed robbery.
案发后，女儿每周都需要看心理医生。
After the armed robbery, my daughter had to see the psychiatrist several times every week.
我现在也在持续吃安眠药和抗抑郁的药。
And also taking sleeping pills and antidepressants continuously.
我们不知道多少年的时光才能抚平我们一家人心里的创伤。
We don't know how many years it would take us to heal from the trauma of the heart of the family.
虽然那次抢劫的2名劫匪已被抓住，但我们仍和以前一样，常常被暴力骚扰。
Although the 2 robbers are been caught, we're still often violently harassed and abused at our store like before, like most small Chinese business owners.
我的丈夫已经 不打电话报警了，因为觉得没有用，每次警察都在疑犯离开很久以后才到，之后也从来没有后续。
My husband doesn't call the police because he feels it's useless to call, and the police always arrive a long time after suspect leave, without any follow-up afterward.
如果这样的营业情况和生活情况不改变，我们很难看到从心理创伤中恢复的希望。
Unless the business conditions and the living conditions change, it's hard for us to see the hope of recovering from the trauma.
经过和孙一小姐很多的沟通，我终于决定带着我的2个孩子一起来到今天的听证会。
Having gone through a lot of communication with Miss Stephanie Song, who is seated beside me, I finally decide to come and bring my 2 children to the hearing today.
让我的孩子看到他们并不孤单，有那么多的人和他们在一起。
To let my children to see they're not alone. There's so many people together with them by their side.
有那么多的政府官员和警察想要保护他们。
There's so many government officials and police want to protect them.
让我的孩子们看到未来和幸福的希望。
And there's hope for happiness and for a bright future.
谢谢大家。
Thank you for everyone.
Thank you very much. We will let the whole panel testify. I do have to interrupt that just because we have young children here. I think it's important to let them know that we appreciate them coming here, and they certainly are brave to do that. And this is part of, as Councilman Derek Green knows, as a former prosecutor, this is the part where they begin to take back their lives by taking a stand. And they are doing something today to address this problem for everybody, so thank you.
非常感谢您今天把您的2位年幼的孩子带到这里，这是非常特别的。非常感谢您的勇气以及你们的孩子的勇气。今天在座的各位都是一起想要帮助你们，我们一起来努力，希望让他们的生活回到正轨，一起保护大家。谢谢。
谢谢大家。
Thank you.
Could we have the next witness testify, please?
Okay.
Thank you. Can you provide her the microphone and you'll take the other one? There's only 2. There's 3 of you, but only 2 mics. So if you could move
Okay.
the microphone over.
Okay, so our second victim, she would like to read through the whole testimony in Chinese, and I will read the whole English
Okay.
version. Thank you.
大家好，各位议员及听证主席成员好，我叫李丽芳，我和丈夫一起在费城北部经营一家中餐外卖店。我们有2个女儿，一个19岁，一个9岁。我们曾全家住在餐厅的楼上，但是现在变了。自从2012年餐厅开业以来，我们常常被骚扰，比如暴力破坏店内设施，把垃圾倒在厅里和柜台上，辱骂、恐吓，影响餐厅正常营业。每次我们都立即报警了，大约一半的情况下，警察会来。警察大多半小时或1个小时以后才来，骚扰的人都已经离开了。有时我们需要等超过24小时。4年来，我们至少总共已经报警了100多次，其中只有几次警察问了我地址，并叫我签字。大多情况下，警察简单问一下情况后就走了，并未做笔录。有时候我的丈夫劝我不用报警了，因为他觉得似乎没有用，感到绝望。然而我们不能理解的是，有很多次我们看见邻居在街上吵架，并没有肢体冲突或暴力，只要旁边的人打电话报警，警察却总是在几分钟之内就迅速到场。我们听说费城是一座欢迎移民的城市，然而我们却常常在店里遭到带有种族歧视的辱骂，比如骂我是 Chinese bitch 或者 Go back to China， 还朝柜台吐口水，这对我2个女儿造成了巨大的心理阴影。每当我的朋友问我9岁的小女儿你是华裔吗，她总是强烈否认，我不是华裔，我是美国人。我问我的小女儿为什么要否认自己是华裔，她说如果别人知道我是华裔，别人会笑话我，会欺负我的。今年9月，我在 YouTube 看见了一则就说如何 抢劫中国人家庭的音乐影像 YG 唱的《遇见劫匪》，这让我想起了我大女儿的遭遇，让我非常震惊、气愤、心痛。2012年8月的一天下午5点刚过，暑假中的大女儿在餐馆的柜台里看 iPad， 一个男性劫匪突然直接闯进，迅猛地夺走了她手上的 iPad， 并把我推倒在地，导致我双腿受伤，几周不能走路。报警大约半小时后，警察到了，我女儿告诉警察，她的 iPad 有定位功能，可以根据定位并找到罪犯，但警察说他们不能这么做。这次抢劫后，原本活泼的女儿变得沉默寡言。以前她每天放学后都会到店里帮忙2个小时，那以后她再也不愿意下楼到餐厅来。去年，我女儿以全校第1的成绩从高中毕业，选大学时，虽然费城有那么多的好的大学，但我女儿一定要离开费城，这个让她觉得很危险的城市。因为总是被骚扰袭击，我担心她离开我去外地生活会更受到伤害。我几乎是强迫她留在费城。我与我女儿有了争吵，最终她妥协了，但条件是不住在家里，这个对她来说是噩梦一样的地方。现在她就读于天普大学，离我家很近，开车只需要5分钟，但很少来家里。我小女儿常常问我，姐姐为什么不回来看我们？我并没有告诉小女儿抢劫的事，大女儿总是想毕业之后尽快离开费城。在我接她来美国前，我们曾分隔2国9年，我们真的不想再次骨肉分离。恳请费城市政府和警察给我们一个安全的生活环境，把我的女儿留在我的身边。为了不让中国的家人担心，我并没有告诉他们我们的痛苦遭遇。但我的家人既然从中国打电话来问我是否被抢劫了，费城品花针对华裔的抢劫持枪案件已经被中国很多媒体报道，在中国已经成为了热议的话题。所以我并不想在媒体和公众面前露面，但今天我鼓足了勇气来到你们面前，就是为了我们孩子的未来，为了我们所有的华裔、所有的亚裔、所有的移民。我们真心希望和政府及警方充分沟通合作，使费城成为一个宜居宜乡的国际化大城市，而不是人人希望逃离的危险暴力城市。谢谢大家。
Thank you very much. Would you translate that for us, Stephanie? Thank you.
Yeah. Good morning, council members. My name is Li Fang Li. My husband and I are small business owners and residents of Philadelphia. We own and run a Chinese takeout restaurant in North Philadelphia. We have 2 daughters, one 19 years old, now attending Temple University, and 9 years old. We live upstairs from our business. Since opening the restaurant in 2012, we have been the victims of numerous attacks, insults, damages to property, including broken windows and robbery. We call the police as soon as the event happened, but often the police arrive well past the incident and perpetrators were long gone. Sometimes we have waited for close to 24 hours before the police respond. I believe I have called the police at least 100 times during the 4 years to report this attack at the restaurant. In very few instances, the police took note about the complaint or incident. My husband is now telling not to call the police when things happen because he feels it's useless. However, we see people arguing out loud in the street and someone calls the police and they just arrive quickly to defuse the situation. We're told that Philadelphia is a welcoming city to immigrants. However, we are often abused and feel the victims of racial discrimination in our stores. were yelled, "Chinese bitch, go back to China," and some people spit at us. This unfortunate event have created deep psychological scars in our daughters. My 9-year-old daughter is often asked by my friend and her friend if she is Chinese American. She answers that she is American, not a Chinese American. I asked why she denies her identity, and she told me, if people know that I'm a Chinese American, they will make fun of me. They will bully me. Last September, I watched a music video on YouTube teaching the public how to rob Chinese family. The rap video is named Meet the Flockers by YG. It reminds me of my oldest daughter's suffering. I'm shocked by this, extremely indignant and distressed. One afternoon in August 2012, at around 5 p.m., my eldest daughter was using her iPad behind the counter in the store when a male entered in and stole it from her hand, pushing me to the ground as well and injuring my legs. I couldn't walk for a couple of weeks as a result. About 30 minutes later, the police arrived after calling 911. My daughter explained to the police that the iPad is equipped with GPS tracking, which could locate the exact location of the device and could help them to catch the thief. But the police replied they couldn't do that. After the robbery, my daughter became very reserved. She used to stop by after school to help out at the restaurant, but she stopped doing it. When she graduated from her high school, by the way, she was #1 in her class. She wanted to leave Philadelphia to go to college because in her heart, she feels the city is too dangerous. But also because of the constant harassment she feels as a Chinese American. This became a point of contention in our house, and only after much pressure, she decided to attend the Temple University here in Philadelphia, but only if we let her live in campus, away from our house. Even now, she seldom visits, making her younger sister especially sad. But we never told my youngest about the robbery as the reason her sister feels the way she does. I asked in earnest to the City of Philadelphia government and the police department, please protect us and provide for us a safe living environment so that our daughter will choose to stay in Philadelphia with her family. We didn't share this text with our relatives in China. We don't want them to worry about us, but my family in China called me and asked if we had been robbed, because there have been many news stories in China about the targeting of Chinese family. This is a topic there in China now. As you can understand, I did not want to go public with my story. However, today, I summon my courage to come before you, since you hold in your hands our children's future and that of all Chinese American and other Asians. For all immigrants in this city, we sincerely want to communicate with the government to make Philadelphia an immigrant welcoming city and a business-friendly city, not a violent city where people want to escape from. Thank you for your hearing my testimony.
Thank you very much. Is Yuming Wang here? Yuming Wang? Okay, would you step forward to testify?
Good morning, Chairman all and other council members. Thank you so much for still sitting here listening to us. My name is Michael Wang. I am an attorney and also a small business owner in Philadelphia. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak today. In about last 3 years, my rental property were burglarized about 22 times on about 20 real properties in the Winfield section of Philadelphia. I reported about 19 of the burglaries out of 22. The most recent burglary happened on October 3rd, 2016 at 1711 Georges Lane, and a washer and dryer was stolen. I called 911 and an officer came. I offered her suspect's information, but she refused to take the information for the reason that I did not personally see the suspect burglarizing my property. I asked her if I could talk to her supervisor. She went outside sitting in her car for about 30 minutes. Then 2 more police officers came who took the suspect information and also told me that they would at least interview the suspects. At about 8:50 the next morning, I find out the same well-secured property was burglarized again, and some furniture was stolen. I immediately called 911, and I was told that the police officer would come soon. About 1 hour passed and nobody came. I called 911 again and I was told to wait. About another 1 or 2 hours passed and nobody came. I called 911 again and I was told the 19th district was informed and they would send police officer to my house soon. I waited for a while and nobody came. I called 911 again, and I was told again that it was the 19th district handling this matter. When finished talking with the 911 operator, I called the 19th district immediately, and I was told that they would send someone to my house soon. Some time passed and nobody came. My worker who was working inside my house became angry. So he also called 911, explaining what happened. However, his call didn't help. I called the 19th district again, and I was told that the police officer were ready to be dispatched. Some time passed and nobody came. Now I keep calling. Eventually, at 5 o'clock, they came. Both my worker and I told police officer that a neighbor is suspect because my furniture was just laying outside the neighbor's door. And one officer told me that she would leave this matter to a detective to handle. The next day, I met a detective at my property and also pointed out to him the furniture was still laying outside the neighbor's door. However, I have not heard anything since. As an attorney, I often receive calls from my clients asking me for advice on similar situation. When they repeatedly told me that they had to wait a few hours for police to come, I just thought that it could have been a language problem, or my clients did not state the problem clearly. However, when the same problem happened to me this time, I felt shocked, disappointed, and even helpless. Within the last few days, I had 2 clients call me from China. One asked me if it is still safe for him to purchase some properties worth $2 million in Philadelphia. The other one asked me if she should send her children to school in a city other than Philadelphia, because she just heard that Philadelphia is becoming more and more unsafe. I'm here not to blame the police officers, because it seems to me that police officers cannot solve this problem alone. But I really want to ask the City Council a few questions. Number one, these burglaries are happening so often. Are there not enough police officers in Philadelphia to handle these criminal activities? Or is the matter of burglary just too small to handle? Number two, Chinese restaurant owners often face daily problems such as robberies, vandalization, drug dealings, fighting, and even urination in the restaurant. What can the city do to eliminate these problems? Third, YG Song Meat Flagger openly encouraged people to rob the Chinese, and the fear of the Chinese being robbed was elevated dramatically. Can you do something to combat these activities, especially against the Chinese? And what measure are you going to take to solve these problems? Number four, among all the measures you do choose to take, do you believe that the city government, police, and community networks are extremely important to combat crime? If so, can we do it together? I will say another few words. I just talked to John Walker when he was here, and he told me the burglary in Philadelphia, the national rate, the case being solved is 12%. Philadelphia is 14%. So it seems to the police department, Philadelphia is well done. So this is not problem, seems to him. But I see daily, robberies and also burglaries. I feel very unsafe. And another one is that this burglary, the police seldom solve the problem. You report, they take the information, that's it. Out of the 20 cases I reported, none of them solved. It's no information further at all. If police department cannot do it, who else can do it? I really need city council to figure out how can we do it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We are going to try to answer those very questions. At this time, I'd like to move on, however, to our last witness, who unfortunately was very reluctant to come forward because of fear of retaliation. So we're going to read in her written testimony. We only identify her as witness X.
下面我们的第四位受害者，因为考虑到安全的问题，所以我们决定尊重他的意见，保护他的隐私。经过他的授权，我在这里代替他来念他在这次听证会的证词。Good morning, council members. My husband and I are small business owners and residents of Philadelphia. We own and run a Chinese restaurant in Germantown. We have 3 daughters and live upstairs from our business. On August 16, 2016, at around 10:30 p.m., the restaurant was still open, and I was working alone in the restaurant, and my husband was sleeping upstairs. 3 men masked with towels and T-shirts entered my restaurant. One of them jumped quickly onto the counter, pointed the gun at me, and tried to enter the window of the bulletproof glass to get to the cash register. I closed the window and simultaneously reached the phone and called 911. The robbers could not enter through the window, so tried to break in through the door next to the window. They quickly broke the door and the door frame and was able to get inside. They pushed me down onto the ground, and when I got up, one of them pointed the gun to my head. And during that time, they quickly took all the cash from the cash register, which was around $500 US. They ran away very quickly. Everything happened in a matter of minutes. The robbers left before my husband came down from the third floor of the restaurant. The police arrived 5 minutes after the robbers left. 2 days after the armed robbery, we decided to sell the business, and so we posted an advertisement. My family wants to leave this dangerous neighborhood. However, nobody is showing interest in purchasing our restaurant. This was not our first armed robbery. Last October, there was another armed robbery in the restaurant. The robbery also happened around 10 p.m. while the restaurant was still open. At that time, my husband was alone at the restaurant. 2 robbers entered and pointed the gun to my husband. They robbed all the cash from the register, which was around several $100s, a laptop, and a cell phone. After the robbery, we called the police immediately, and they arrived in a half an hour, which I believe allows the criminals to leave and make it difficult for the police to catch them. The police just simply asked several questions and took notes and left. There has not been a follow-up from the police. These 2 armed robberies have left psychological scars. Now, every day at around 10 p.m., I'm scared to be at the restaurant, causing anxiety. I repeatedly check the locks of the door. Now, Halloween is not fun anymore, but has become a scary experience for me because people with masks all remind me of the masked robbers. Because of the robberies, I am often sad, and it becomes hard for me to smile at my customers, which lowers my service quality at the restaurant. And I even became easily upset at my children, although my husband and I have never told my children about the robberies. Another Chinese restaurant, 1 block from our restaurant, was robbed twice within 3 months this year, once in April and the other in June. The owner was struck in the head with a gun and bled severely. I believe that we're closely being watched by the criminals who were robbing us. They're knowledgeable about our restaurant operation and facility, so they are able to enter and rob us in just short few minutes. The owner of the restaurant, 1 block from us, and I both reported the armed robberies to the police right away. However, we're not aware of the status of catching the robbers. Therefore, we're scared every day that they may come back to rob us again. Currently, there are people in the Chinese community purchasing guns to protect themselves. This is a very dangerous situation, and it is opposite to Chinese culture and personality. The protection we're seeking is from the government. Please protect us. We do hope to work with the police, to work with the government to build a safe community and a safe city. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. At this time, I will ask my colleagues if they have any questions. Just a reminder that we are on a tight time schedule. I have 6 community witnesses that we have asked to keep it to 2 minutes but still, there is just a short period of time. But if there's any questions, please let me know. Councilman Squilla?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say, and I appreciate the efforts of the people who came out to testify, because I know that's not easy for you to do that, and to have your voice heard. It's so important to send a message out, not only to us in council, but to the people of the city of Philadelphia and to our police department. And knowing that we as a council will do what we can, working with all our agencies, working with Commerce for our camera programs, working to make sure that the businesses and the city council and also the police department are all on the same page moving forward from this. But this does not happen without your advocacy, without your voice. And it's really so important for you to do this, and we really appreciate and thank you for it.
Thank you, Councilman Squilla. Councilman Green?
Yes, very quickly. Mr. Wang, you talked about the robberies that you faced, and you also talked about robberies that your clients have faced. Have any of them participated in any community meetings with the police?
Have you or any of the clients who told you about being robbed or burglarized, have they been involved with any of these community meetings with the police department, DA's office? Have they been actively engaged in communicating to law enforcement, cooperating about these robberies and burglaries?
Yes, sure. More and more Chinese coming forward to cooperate with law enforcement and also go to the court to testify. Right now, more and more Chinese willing to come forward, for whatever they can do.
Thank you very much. Clerk, would you read the next panel of, let's do 3 and 3 witnesses? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
谢谢大家。Li Fang Li Liao, Mandarin bilingual victim advocate, Center City Victim Services, Philadelphia. Ying Zhang Lin, President, Chinese Takeout Restaurant Association of Greater Philadelphia, joined by Stephen Zhu. Peter Gonzalez, President, Welcoming Center for New Philadelphians, joined by Stephanie Sun.
As the witnesses step forward, I will remind everybody that we're going to try to end this hearing we're a little running after, but we will take questions at the end, and there may be some statements by my colleagues, so please try to make your statements 2 minutes. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Li Fan Liao, and I work for Center City Crime Victim Services. I speak Mandarin Chinese, and I work as a victim advocate and liaison between the DA's office, police department, and the Chinese American crime victims. Over the past 6 years, I have assisted over 200 Chinese American victims of violent crimes, including 5 homicides. The majority of my victims are small business owners at Chinese food takeouts, corner stores, and laundromats, or immigrants with limited English-speaking ability. To better understand the safety issue facing Chinese American small business owners in Philadelphia, with assistance from the Office of Councilman at Large, David O., we conducted a survey from October 17 to 29, and we received a total of 240 responses. The key results were, out of 216 responses, 65.8% or 142 owners of small business indicate in the survey that they do not feel safe running the store in their neighborhood. And 53 business owners responded that they fear to report crime to the police, with the major reason being the language barrier. Out of 185 business owners' responses, 44.8% responded that they did not get connected to the language line after calling 911. And out of 186 business owners' responses, 51.6% of them disagree with the following statement: the police came to the crime scene in time in accordance with the priority. with your life was in danger and the crime was just happening is the first priority. Out of 184 responses, 24.4 disagree with the following statement: the police treat them fairly. Out of 187 responses, 8.6% disagree with the following statement: the police listen to them. I urge and hope the City Council to hear and understand the voices from nearly 200 Chinese American business owners who are also the fathers and mothers of 200 immigrant families and take active actions in addressing their needs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would the next witness please testify?
I wanted to thank Councilman at large, David O, and all councilmen for holding this hearing today. Thank you for holding today's historic hearing, which I believe is the first Philadelphia City Council hearing regarding the safety of the Asian community. My name is Ying Zhang Ling. I'm the current president of Greater Philadelphia Chinese Restaurant Association. We currently have over 340 members in our association. Most of them are restaurant and business owners. I have been involved in the Chinese community activity for the past 15 years. I have personally helped the families of more than 12 murdered Chinese restaurant owners in Philadelphia. I witnessed the pain and the suffering that the families feel after losing their loved one. In 2016, the crime against the Chinese community alone has dramatically increased compared to the year before. Over 50 Chinese Americans became victims of armed robbery in their business and residence. Some restaurants were even robbed multiple times within 1 year. Just 3 weeks ago, my Vietnamese friends and business partner was beaten and robbed in her homes by 2 men. Thankfully, her 2 young children were not harmed. I would like to find a non-violent solution for all of the Asian business owners and the people in Philadelphia to this problem before more people are harmed. I would like to find a solution that let everyone feel safe in their own homes and business, because I'm concerned that if they feel unsafe and feel that they are unable to receive help, they will look for solution on their own, which including become armed with guns. I don't believe more guns to be the safest and the best solution for our community. Over the last decade, our association has been working together with the Philadelphia Police Department, local African American and Spanish American communities to improve relationships, to raise awareness, and to have crime prevention seminars. I feel that today's public hearing is the next step, and it's my hope that we can continue to all work together to find a permanent and a non-violent solution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Su, just before you begin, I'll just note Lieutenant John Walker is here. If you could stick around, there is a question from council member at the end of all our testimonies on this panel and questions. Thank you. Dr. Su?
Okay, Honorable Councilman David O, and all of Councilman, Councilwoman. Thank you for your holding today's meeting. My name is Stephen Zhu. I'm a Great Philadelphia Fujian Association President candidate. I served this community for 16 years. As Lily Liao just so emotionally, she cried, because I also sit on the Central City Crime Service as their board member for service, I think it's over 4 years. It's very many sad stories repeated day by day, year by year. That's the reason she take care. We work together to service over 250 victims. Therefore, she's so emotional. That's really like a sad story always happening. I don't have so much want to say. I just want to comment. And we expect police department to improve their job and really to pay high attention for minority service. Yes, like just please always mention 911 system have a Chinese language translator service. In reality, I get so many our member call back. This is very unfortunate. They always tell them we don't have Chinese language translator right now. And also call, as Dr. Wang just mentioned, Dr. Lin just mentioned, many call without a response in a timely matter. Because things look like they're feeling, because you talk about English, have accent issue, we're not necessary to give you right-away service as member feeling that way. And also, if other people call, they get a response right away. That's not only Chinese takeout restaurant, also some other business, include like a laundry maid, so many other stuff, many like small business, include like a grocery store, small like a corner store. They call police. Police always feeling this, at least a long hour to show up, and many things already damaged, harassment, so many things have been already gone. And the police just show up, even there could be, from my understanding, they even don't want to fighting the case. As Dr. Wang just mentioned on 19th district issue, they're waiting for whole day to ask police come in. Even the second day they check out on call back the 19th district, even they don't have any fighting case. Police just totally ignore the issue. And also, we just, Frank, every time I try to ask Frank, police general counsel, but unfortunately he's not in here right now, and I don't have a chance to ask question. Because my main wording is this year, a lot of armed robbery. In the past 15 years, yes, every year we have a bunch of business owners get hurt and this year, in the 2 months period of time, we have over 12 business owners get an armed burglary in their business, in their home. That's a very serious issue. I'm not sure that he mentioned 143 case for Asian American, 15.7%, and then this year also saying look like kind of as a reduced, but I'm not sure how many is armed robbery inside. We need to pay high attention. I expect police headquarters to have one Chinese speaker for community officer. That's a very serious issue. We become a very bad name, as just many people like I mentioned. We are not a world-class city. We look like people of images. Philadelphia is a very dangerous city. People don't want to live in here. Most business owners told me if their kid grow up after 18 years, they're willing to out of the city. As councilmen, all of you sit here, we need to change. I think they will always try. Sometimes I went to councilmen, they will always talk about the issue. They will always say, okay, we're going to change. We're going to bring high attention about it. We hope we need to start some action today.
not in the near future, not in the future. I hope that's my personal expectation. Okay. Thank you all of you. I just for this comment.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'll ask you to just move to those seats. We have 2 questions, I know, but I will have the other 4 witnesses testify, then we'll take the council questions, because I forgot to mention, we have 5 public comment witnesses, including a police captain, so I want to get to that as well. So could the other witnesses step forward to testify, and then if you'll stick around, I know we have a question from Councilwoman Kim and Councilman Dong.
Thank you. Okay.
Would you please begin your testimony? Thank you.
Certainly. Good afternoon. My name is Peter Gonzalez. I'm the President and CEO of the Welcoming Center for New Pennsylvanians. Here with my colleague Stephanie Sun, who is an outreach specialist for our small business development and civic engagement programs. Welcoming Center for New Pennsylvanians is a private nonprofit organization that was founded in 2003 by an immigrant to serve as a resource for our growing immigrant population. There are now over 200,000 immigrants living in Philadelphia, and our mission is to accelerate immigrant integration and economic advancement through education and training, job placement, and entrepreneurship. Welcoming Center serves over 1,500 people each year from more than 100 different countries. We provide free English and citizenship classes, and we help newcomers with all levels of experience build the skills needed to enter the workforce. We also provide technical assistance to entrepreneurs as they launch and grow their businesses in neighborhoods and along commercial corridors throughout the city. With a staff of 28 people, many of whom speak multiple languages and have lived and worked in other countries, we are able to provide culturally competent training to institutions, employers, and our city's growing immigrant population. My colleague, Stephanie Sun, specialized in business communications in China and South Korea before moving to Philadelphia. She has been leading our outreach and engagement efforts to the Chinese and Asian communities, helping business owners comply with legal and regulatory requirements and learn about city-funded initiatives to support neighborhood businesses. The Welcoming Center is deeply concerned about the home invasions and armed robberies targeting Chinese businesses. For the past several months, we have participated in community meetings to address this issue with law enforcement agencies. We published and circulated a guide to to provide practical information on how city store owners can protect themselves from violence and harassment and improve customer relations. The Merchant Safety Guide is printed in English, Spanish, and Chinese. Thank you, Steve. Unfortunately, this is not a new dilemma. Ethnic communities have been targets of violence and crime throughout the history of our country, in part because they are vulnerable, still learning the language and culture of their new country, and they are still building their social networks. Feeling safe is key to being part of any community, and creating a sense of belonging is crucial to their successful integration into Philadelphia. No group should be made to feel unwelcome, let alone unsafe. The targeting of a specific ethnic group is particularly troubling. We must come together as a community to stop this. Engaging with the city is a positive step forward. When faced with challenges, it is easy to think that self-help might be the only alternative, but there are resources in place to help ensure the safety of our families and communities. Government and law enforcement agencies should work together with business associations, community organizations, neighborhood residents, and entrepreneurs. In fact, they must work together to solve this problem. It starts with trust. Trust that all parties are doing their part. Trust that all parties are doing their part to make sure that all people are safe, regardless of where they were born, how well they communicate, or how different they may be. We stand together with anyone made to feel unsafe or unwelcome, and we look forward to participating in the process of making sure the Chinese immigrant community feels protected and valued. We offer ourselves as another resource to help build trust and share practical solutions. It is the right thing to do. We must do it to make Philadelphia more welcoming. I'd like to add, I will submit these written comments, but I would like to add that it is common for people to blame victims in situations like this. And I can assure you that there are no entrepreneurs, there are no immigrants that have arrived in this city
to create a business to support their families and thought that it would be a good idea to welcome this crime into their stores or into their homes. To suggest that they are in any way encouraging this violence and crime, bringing it upon themselves, is insulting, it is wrong, and if we are to go down that path, we are not looking at the solutions to this issue. We must invest in supporting learning of the language, the culture, access to the resources that are available, and the Welcoming Center is very proud to be part of looking at that solution.
Thank you very much. May I just also publicly thank Stephanie's son from the Welcoming Center. She spent hours and hours preparing and working on this matter. Would everybody give her a round of applause? Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Duran?
Yes, thank you and good morning. Thank you for having me. My name is Jamie Duran and I am Director of Programs at the Greater Philadelphia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in front of you this morning. Some of these circumstances resonate in the Hispanic community as well. And I surveyed our membership to include the small businesses such as the grocery store owners and have found the following observations in regards to safety and neighborhood security as the top 3 concerns. Grocery store owners do not receive adequate support when calling for assistance with quality of life issues such as loiterers in front of their stores and at times doing illegal activity. They asked to be placed on roll call and have a signing book like it is done with state liquor stores. They also say their sentiments are that the non-English speaking merchants feel dismissed when interacting with the police on site, in addition to on the phone, but on site when interacting with the police, as though they are not part of the process. Perhaps utilizing the language access services provided will help bridge the gap between law enforcement and the non-English speaking merchants while interacting with them on site. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. We'll ask the next 2 witnesses to come forward. That would be Bilal Qayyum and Reverend Robert Scheid. Thank you. I'll ask our witnesses to remain seated, as I know we have actually 3 council members that have questions. Mr. Qayyum, would you begin by identifying yourself for the record? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Councilman. My name is Bilal Qayyum. I'm president of the Father's Day Rally Committee. I was asked to come here by Councilman O to give my testimony. I quickly listened to all the other testimonies were given from the Asian community and other individuals, and I want to go right to what I think one of the solutions, or some of the solutions that we need to address. As always, the hidden elephant in the room is racism. And nobody wants to talk about it. Unfortunately, a lot of the Asian business owners in the city of Philadelphia are located in the African American community. There is a big disconnect between the Asian community and the African American community. So we must, one of the things I want to suggest, Councilman O, is that today we look at establishing a task force made up of leadership from the black community and leadership from the Asian community, particularly the Chinese Asian community. A lot of the businesses are targeted because of that disconnection. Chinese don't hire African Americans in the neighborhoods. They operate in their neighborhoods, take the black money, but don't hire any black workers. That's the problem. Chinese businesses also allow drug dealing and other negative activities to take in front of place of their businesses. That's the problem. So there's this, once again, this big disconnect that we have to work on. I remember almost 9 years ago, when I was working spending almost all my time in the streets trying to reduce violence in the city of Philadelphia. We were out in West Philadelphia on 52nd Street, and we were canvassing the neighborhood, talking to folks about what they could do to organize Town Watch and other groups, and also trying to interact with young men standing on corners. A lot of those neighborhoods we were in, the young men standing on corners were standing in front of Chinese stores. Chinese takeout stores. In one of the stores on 52nd Street, we have asked the businesses, or a lot of the stores on 52nd Street, we asked the businesses to hang up a poster talking about, it was a sign about reducing violence. There's one store on 52nd, around 52nd Larchwood, one of our young men who was involved with organizing with us went in the store, and it was an exchange between the owner, or we found out later on it wasn't an owner, it was a worker of the store, in the store, with this young man about not putting the poster in. And she actually told the young man to get out of her store and called him by the N-word. We immediately did a protest of that store, and we closed that store. From that meeting, from that action, we had a meeting with the Business Association in Chinatown about that incident and how we could work together. Unfortunately, nothing really developed out of that meeting. So I would once again suggest that we look at doing a joint effort between City Council, the communities, and particularly the Asian community about a task force, and see how we can have some real dialogue about this problem. This problem is not going to be solved by City Council. And I want my Asian, and I refer to them today as my brothers and sisters, to understand this is a problem that's been built up over years. Government's not going to solve this problem. We have to figure out how we have to have more interaction with the store owners if they're going to operate in the black community. The Asian community has to understand that because of institutional racism in this country, you are now suffering what we suffer every day and have been for years, been suffering in this country, discrimination because of our skin color. Unfortunately, because of the institutional white racism in this country, now they have blacks fighting against whites, whites fighting against Asians, Asians fighting against blacks, the Latino community. We in the city of Philadelphia, we keep hearing about this. We are a city, a great city, and immigrants coming in. But 54% of the city of Philadelphia are black folks. 50% of black males in the city of Philadelphia are jobless. They have no money. They have no hope. They don't see anything. So anybody who comes to that neighborhood, if it's Asians or Latino, they operate, there's no connection between these communities. We will continue to see the violence that's taking place in the city of Philadelphia. So I'd once again, Council, and Councilman O, since you're taking the leadership, plead with you that we don't let this be a hearing of frustration from the Asian community and frustration from other folks, that we really take some action, establish a task force, get the right leadership, let's sit in a room and talk about how we can resolve this problem so that next year, 2 years, 3 years down the line, you're not having a hearing about conflicts. And I will say once again, this is an issue that's very important to us in the black community, because the stores, we don't want to see those stores closing down. They become vacant. The services that they provide are good services. We don't want to see that, but there is this big disconnect. We got to figure out how to work together to close that disconnect. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Reverend Shine?
Yes. My name is Reverend Robert Shine. I've pastored in Philadelphia for 45 years. And as I entered the chambers here, I read the language on the shirts. It says, "We want safety." It brought to my mind the feeling in the African American community, and that is, Black Life Matters. That does not resonate well in the white community across this nation, but black life does matter. As a result of my relationship with the Chinese community, it has grown tremendously. There's been many difficult issues with which they have been confronted with. And what I've heard today is reprehensible and egregious, that they have been found to be the victims. African Americans have been victimized in America due to racism, bigotry, prejudice. We have been called many a name. As far as the police are concerned, we have worked with the police department in the city of Philadelphia. As a matter of fact, it was I who wrote the 10.2 program for Commissioner Ramsey that was submitted to the president for his policing task force. But there have been issues. I have been severely victimized by the police in Philadelphia. On one occasion, for an example, I was stopped by the police, racial profiling, and they patted me down. And then they said I had something in my pants. They made me take my pants down on a Sunday morning en route to my church. The officer came out of the van, dragged me by the pants that was at my knees, ankles, and drugged me and threw me in the paddy wagon, and I never got to my church. That was a Sunday. So we have been victimized. We understand the victimization that our friends in the Chinese community have gone through. We understand it deeply. We are very concerned about it. We've been there to support their issues and support their causes for at least 15, maybe as many as 20 years, that we have been there to support them. We've gone to court with them. I've buried their dead. I've preached their funerals. I've performed their weddings. I've gone to New York on an issue that was reprehensible. When ICE was deporting a young lady, I was there with them when she lost her twins. I was there and we boycotted. We also had rallies innumerous so that we could support them. The African American community at large, what I don't want to see happen is that the black community, the African American community, is painted with a broad brush so that it appears that African Americans are criminal minded. We must avoid that kind of language. And at the same time, we must be supportive. And I agree with what my brother Belial had just said about we are brothers and sisters in the human family. And as a result of that, I would support any. I've supported Chinese American candidates for city council. I've supported Chinese Americans across this nation. And so we have gone on the front at the risk of, even when a police officer in New York, a Chinese American, was found guilty of a charge that I did not agree with, still do not agree with, and supported him in that issue. Contrary to a lot of what others have said to me about what position I had taken. But I believed in righteousness, I believe in justice, fair justice, equal justice for all. I believe that the Chinese Americans who have suffered these egregious crimes, that they need to be defended, protected. Surely they need a safety, but we all need safety. And we all need safety to live in this land together, to live in this city together. I love Philadelphia. I love every person in Philadelphia. And I believe that when these, my brothers and sisters in the Chinese Americans, suffer injury, suffer wrong, and suffer these invasions in their stores and under threat of violence, I believe that whatever I can do to bring a halt to that, I'm about doing it. I'm about doing it so that they can live in peace and safety and harmony. They can earn their living. They can earn a right to be respected so that they are not victims of racial discrimination. What we suffered as African Americans, they're now suffering. So why should I turn on them when I suffered the same indignities? So I want to support them, will support them. It doesn't matter what anyone else says. I believe in the right for all, and I stand by that, and I welcome the opportunity to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Reverend Shai. At this time, I'm going to open it up for my colleague's question. I know we have 5 witnesses for public comment. Anyone who would like to make public comment, it is a legal right that you have, but you have to go sign up over there. I will say, however, that the main point is to express to us, your city council, and to the public, the issues and concerns, and I try to make a broad perspective I don't agree with every perspective presented. Maybe my colleagues do. That's not the important point. But as was pointed out, we should get a broad view of how things are if we're going to address it. So I believe the first question was actually Councilman Dom, and then Councilman Gim, and then Councilman Green.
Thank you. My question's for Mr. Lin, the president of the Takeout Association.
Dr. Lin, would you step up, please?
I think it's a good afternoon, Dr. Lin.
Good afternoon.
Just a quick question. In the, I'm looking at this and hearing the problems and just trying to come from a practical standpoint, if that's possible. I think I'm coming from preventive versus cure. A lot of the other issues I'm hearing is what you do after the crime happens. I'm trying to get to the point of preventing the crime. And when you look at the district attorney's testimony under motivations, 3 out of the 6 motivations, I'm just going to read this to you, of the people they interviewed that committed these crimes, Asian businesses do business in cash, Asian businesses owners do not use banks, and Asian business owners keep large amounts of cash in their homes in close proximity to where they sleep. Do you think there's a way to change that whole equation? Do you think there's a way that we can educate our restaurant members or associates that own restaurants to help them to change that so that doesn't happen, so they're not targeted, so we can prevent it versus getting into the cure?
Thank you for your question. Personally, I didn't run a restaurant business, I run other business, but I agree with you. You should not put a lot of cash at home. We, like Councilman David always said, this is, if you have cash, you become a target. That's exactly true. We encourage, they do use the bank, but the business nature, usually they have cash, They collect the cash from the customer and then they go shopping. You cannot avoid that.
Well, here's a question. Are the customers coming to the takeout restaurants and restaurants have the ability to pay in a form other than cash, credit card or a bank card or whatever? Do they have that ability? Do you know if they can accomplish that?
Can you answer the question?
Let me answer the question. As my understanding on the certain area, especially on a takeout restaurant, the reason they don't take a credit card because most of the clients they don't have, even some people do not have a bank account. They always use cash. And sometimes it's other, I don't know, most of them look like they have no way to pay, like debit card. They're more favor always use cash. That's the Chinese business owner collect cash. It's not that they want it. In reality, they don't want it. They're waiting to have you can have a credit card, debit card, or stuff.
Well, let me ask you the other question then, because you seem knowledgeable about this. In other restaurants, there are different types of Wells Fargo or other companies that collect cash from restaurants at night. Is that an option?
I'm sorry, can you repeat?
Yeah, is it an option to have an outside service collect the cash at night before the restaurant closes, so they don't have the cash on them and we post a notice there's no cash?
Very honest tell you, just mention, but I also mention why we don't hire African American or local, because there's very, very small business. Very honest, some people only do maybe business whole day, 200, 300. They don't need to put it on a bank. It's a very small amount. Most of them is a husband and a wife business. They do not have ability to hire additional manpower to work for the restaurant.
So I'm going to end the question because I know we have 2 more. I'll just summarize because I am knowledgeable that many of these businesses are what we call very low margin businesses. They operate in cash. They're rather poor. They don't use a lot of heat. They have the kids living upstairs for the reason that they don't have a lot of money. And one of the problems is when a robber goes in with a gun and they want money, sometimes the people just don't have any money and then they are subject to being beaten and other terrible things, and there is no money there. It's a myth that they all have cash. It's not true. But anyway, it leads to some terrible things, but that's why they can't hire, they don't have jobs, and they don't have credit and services. Councilwoman Kim.
Thank you very much. I also want to make sure that the focus really needs to be on ourselves as a city and as an agency. How are we doing our work? Victims, are victims. They didn't ask to be put in that situation. People deal with lots of different circumstances, particularly when we're kind of at the margins. And it's important for us right now to focus in on what our central responsibilities are as a city. So thank you, Councilman O. And also thank you very much, Reverend Shine, for being here and for your comments today, and Mr. Quayum for your comments today as well. I appreciate it. I think it is very important that we are fully aware that people suffer crime and justice in very different ways. And I think part of the purpose of this hearing is to understand the ways in which one particular community is experiencing both crime and justice. It certainly does not reflect on how other communities of color are experiencing crime and justice. I think that's part of the injustices of that system, that we all experience it in such dramatically different ways. And as we're looking for solutions on one end, we have to make sure that we don't exacerbate problems on another. But it is particularly important that we are seeing like a very targeted focus on a relatively small population of people, and there's a lot of questions that we have to get at to understand, like, how are people experiencing it, what are the problems that we've got, and what can we do to do better on that. And we'll continue on other broader issues as well. But Dr. Lin and Dr. Su, Mr. Su in particular, so the police department said that they have a Asian liaison to the Asian community, Deputy Commissioner Christine, I didn't catch her last name, but have you, Coulter, Deputy Commissioner Coulter, have you met with her regularly?
No.
Were you aware that she was the assigned liaison for the Asian American community?
I'm sorry, I don't know.
Well, I'm going to have to interrupt because I've been to, as Reverend Shine has, many of the Chinatown dinners, and actually Deputy Commissioner Coulter is there oftentimes. She's got blonde hair, and she's been to many of the meetings. And so it used to be a different commissioner, but she does appear. I believe that Dr. Zhu would recognize her if he saw her.
Just to be really clear, I think my line of questioning wasn't whether she's been present at any place, but in particular that Mr. Healy said that she was the assigned person to be the liaison for the Asian American community. So what I'm trying to get clarity on is whether actually the people who are experiencing the problems, who should be liaisoning directly with the police department, are actually not just aware that she's present, but that she is the liaison, and that we need to make it clear from the police department side that the deputy commissioner needs to be, that there needs to be a little bit more clarity about that. Mr. Su?
Yeah, thank you, Councilman, your concern about, thank you, Chairman W. We really expect police headquarters have one, maybe at least Asian officer who work for the communication unit. On the past, as my service 16 years for community, beginning on the Reverend Shans who sit here, he give a lot of connect with our community with police department. We have a very well worked for many years through the Reverend Shan, get their support, get police support. But recently they changed commissioner, they always change people. Therefore, we know right now we don't have so much turnover to work with them. That's the big issue here. We really, based on language barrier issue, we really expect police headquarters have someone can speak Chinese.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I think that that's helpful. Dr. Lin, I didn't know if you wanted to add anything else to that.
I'm going to just interrupt. I appreciate the question and the correction, Councilman. I apologize for the interruption, but I'd like to go to Councilman Green because we have only about like 12 minutes for the rest of the witnesses.
Okay. Could I just finish up with the last
Yes.
statement? So I would love to work with you a little bit on that. I think we heard you loud and clear that the police department needs a liaison who actually speaks another, either Mandarin or Cantonese or one of the languages in which to have a better dialogue. I think we're also going to follow up in terms of the police department's meetings with victims advocates groups that represent LEP communities. I think that's also really important. We want to kind of get to the crux of why we have so much problems with the language access. But I think your conversations around that are going to be particularly important in that regard. And the more advice that you give to us about what you need in this situation, I think that would also be extremely helpful. So thank you both. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Green.
Yes, I actually had another question for Lieutenant Walker, but I'll defer that question to this next panel.
Lieutenant Walker's here. Would you come up, Lieutenant Walker? Because Councilman Green has this question from before, so we can answer his question.
And Lieutenant Walker, I know you're the only representative here from the police department. It's actually a question that you actually should take back to Mr. Healy and also the Commissioner Ross. You talked about access availability, both from people calling from 911 and also there's been a number of meetings in the community regarding this issue. However, just based on the testimony, there clearly is a perception of a language challenge. And I think in order to change that perception, there needs to be some type of more engaged conversation, possibly with the commissioner and members of Asian community, especially Asian Chinese merchants, to let people know that although there has been some meetings in the past, we're trying to make that change and change that perception that clearly is represented by the testimony that people do not feel safe in contacting the police department and how we can change that perception. So do you have any thoughts? I don't think you can speak totally on behalf of the police department, but I think there's definitely need for some type of a larger meeting with the commissioner to talk about moving forward, and then the ongoing group that comes together with some of the merchants that are represented here about these issues.
I think, sorry, and I agree. I mean, obviously, there are some issues that clearly need to be put out there to people to understand that the language lines are available and how to access those. I think Captain Healy's made that clear. He's going back to discuss with radio what our issues are, and then discussing that with this community here. Obviously, there's a great number of people that we have here, and as we did in Chinatown. So it's good to see people engaged, involved, to hear these issues, because if we don't know them, we can't fix them. And even though we can sit here and say, yeah, we have a system in place, if it's not working, then we got to fix it, period.
And even from the process of having maybe representatives from some of the merchants that are represented here to see how the process works of actually how a 911 call comes in, how to, being former prosecutor and having worked in various communities, I know how to prioritize certain calls, but I don't think merchants here have that same information. That's why I think it's really incumbent on the police department to reach out and have a more engaged conversation, not just saying access is available, but really showing how access is available to make that change in perception. I think it'll take some time to do that, but having that larger meeting with the commissioner I think is very important, considering that a number of merchants feel very targeted based on the crime that's been going on in the city.
Agreed upon, and we have 911 people come out to the communities, and we'll work on that.
Thank you very much. I'm going to rush through now. I will ask our public comment. That would be Kwang Mak, Alan Wong, Lindy Lee, Arturian Vivas, and Captain John Morney to come forward. I think the captain left. Is he? Okay, I'm sorry. Because we have a hearing at 1 o'clock, which is why I'm trying to press this forward, I will ask you to please make your comments to less than 2 minutes. I know that's unfair, but I'd like to get also Han Pan and Bi Hong, I can't read it, but it looks like Juan, to come after the witnesses that I stated. So, Mr. Wong, would you start, and then Mr. Mack?
Okay, all right, okay. Okay. My name is Alan Wong, and I am the Vice Chair of the Philadelphia Police Asian American Advisory Committee. I have testimony, but I want to drop that because a lot of it has been covered already. But I just first want to answer the question from Councilwoman Kim. She asked whether there is a liaison, organization between the and the police department. And Mr. Kwong and I are the chairman and vice chairman, so it does exist. And I have also want to say that unfortunately, some of the members of the community, in the Chinese community, have not made good use of it. And I have urged Mr. Zhu and Dr. Lin to work with us more closely, because there's a lot of information that we can provide to the association to help improve the safety among the business people. Second thing I want to say is that I want to express my deepest regret in hearing the comments from Mr. Bailo. His comment about the disconnect between the black and Chinese community people. He was implying that the disconnect was a part of the cause of the problem. Unfortunately, I strongly object that, because when a robber, a burglar, comes into your home, what he sees is green, color, the dollar bill. He does not care what the color of the victim is. So the implication that the disconnect, so-called disconnect between the two communities, a problem, I find it very, offensive. As a matter of fact, I'm not too sure, that is actually the problem. Whether there's a disconnect, there might be an issue there, but there are many, many reasons. Under those circumstances, should anybody use that as an excuse to go and rob a Chinese business owners' business?
Well, I will certainly appreciate your point of view. I want to just say that it's important to get these different perspectives. Today we hear about, wanting to ban all Muslims from the United States. I mean, I don't know why we have that, but we can certainly identify that broad brushes of people is not generally a good idea. But, it's important to hear those perspectives if we're going to address this issue and not discount respected people. But anyway, Mr. Mack?
Okay, thank you, Honor Davido, and Honor Citizen and City Councilwoman. My name is Kwang Mak, Chairman of Philadelphia Police Advisory Committee. The reason I was here because I am a former chairman of Pan Asian Association, that's the umbrella of all Asian organization in Philadelphia since 1995. Right now, I am working with the law enforcement for many years, and I know the reason why most of our robbery they target on the Asian people, because the Asian people they are not trust the bank in USA, in their country, because they don't trust. That's why they keep money at home. And the robbery, the intruder, and the invasion, that's they come follow up the owner of restaurant, laundromat, nail salon, and so on. They come to their house and they know some money inside the house. That's one reason. And that's why I recommend that on the Chinese restaurant, they had to close earlier than later at night, because that is target for the people they want to get money. 2 weeks ago, on October 16, not far from my house, the owner of barber shop, they go to shopping, but they suspect murderer, they follow up his car and come to his house and shot and kill him on about 10:45 p.m. at that night. And I know that is something happening, and when I contact with the second district
And they asked them, and they said they will follow up that one. But until now, I don't know. They arrested the suspect murderer or not. The second thing I want to let all of you know, we love to see more immigration come to USA. But they had to come with the background check, because I have the many years in my country before I come over here. And I work for the law enforcement almost the 30 years. I know the trick, I know the intelligence, how we prevent the intruder come to your house, or they follow up your working shop, how to get money from you. And all you know that I know that since a couple years ago, the Honorable David O. and myself, we testify when the grocery owner in the North Philadelphia, that they shot and killed. And after that, the Chinese community rally and the demonstration in the Low Park before. And that's why, because someone, they was in the prison, but I don't know why they released earlier. And they come back to the grocery and they kill the owner. That's why I recommend we had to keep some dangerous people in the prison, cannot release soon, because the same thing happening in Abu Dhabi a couple years ago, when the guy to just release prisoner, and they intruded in the house, and they killed the husband and raped the woman, the wife, and then nobody happened, nobody can arrest that guy. And that's why I love to say that. I would like to say that the high crime that happened in the city, because many people, we have not a job, many people we are drug addicts, and they do not want going to the rehabilitation institute for treatment. This is a big problem for the USA if we do not have a tough punishment for the robbery and intrusion to kill innocent people. In addition, we love to see more refugees to enter the USA with background check to prevent a terrorist. Not all Muslims are terrorists. Every Muslim should be a terrorist. The Charter Europe is the same lesson for the US people. In Australia, a Muslim refugee to a terrorist that got $1 million a year for security watchdog. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mack. I'll ask Lindy Lee and Arterian Vives to step forward,
Yeah,
and then we'll have one more panel after that. Thank you very much.
thank you.
And then we may have some questions and comments afterwards. So, Arterian Vives, would you begin your testimony, followed by Lindy Lee? Then we'll have Han Pan and Bi Hong Guan, and that's it for public comment.
Good afternoon. It's actually Asteria Vives.
Asteria Vivas, I'm sorry.
Buenas tardes. I am Latina, dedicated community advocate. I'll get to the point. I'm in administration, create community meetings, workshops, events, prayer, and peace walks, and cleanups. I do have a clear FBI criminal child abuse background. I am with the 25th Police District Advisory Council, Hispanic Association of Contractors and Enterprises, Hunting Park United, Moribibi, the Ray of Hope Project, as well as many religious institutions. I work with them very well. For years, Asian businesses, including the Greater Philadelphia Chinese Restaurant Association, has attended and supported community meetings and events in our 25th Police District, and they have worked closely with me too. They have sponsored what they believe to be true community advocates, such as myself. We see eye to eye, because as we do know that there are people out there that just want to be recognized, not really to help the community. Recently, they attended less meetings at the 25th Police District area, only to find out that this past summer, extensive robberies were taking place in the in their own Asian community. And I'm sorry about that for all of you. Many of us community leaders never came across disagreements. I know I haven't, in the 25th district, especially there, with the Asian community members. I've personally learned that they are very family-oriented, work as a team, respect their community members, and don't bother anyone, and they tend to themselves. I say that's something good, and at the same time, maybe not so good, because usually when they close a store, they tend to their own selves. Me, as a community member, I believe that they're safe, since they tend to their own selves when they're not. As they say, they're being monitored. My suggestion, which is probably what was already shared, and I say like this because I don't have a television in my home too, is make more business bank deposits, and then set up a surveillance camera program with the police district to better have prompt solutions, which is of no charge, and we can talk about that at a later time. Just as police focus also on businesses' curfew to make sure that they close at 11, they can also focus more after midnight, what's going on with these businesses too. And then maybe possibly proceed with Asian classes, whereas teaching English as a second language. I'm sure each side, the Asian and the police districts, have done whatever they possibly can, and they will do more. We just need more support from community supporters, advocates, and leaders such as myself. We need to alert all areas, though, of the communities, because they are shifting from one area to another. Let's avoid robbery or having robbery turn into murder.
All right.
Okay, so I just want to leave by saying I am serious about my service as a community advocate, and I would like to receive updates, and that would be at homequartersandfriends@gmail.com. homequartersandfriends@gmail.com. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. You are being recorded and transcribed. Ms. Lee, would you testify, please?
Thank you, Councilman David O., Mark Squilla, Helen Gim, and Derek Green for your tremendous leadership. It's an honor to be here today. I'll be extremely brief, don't worry. Look at all the people who have gathered here today, Republicans and Democrats, Black, white, and Asian. What binds us all together is that we are all American, and all Americans deserve to live free from fear. I grew up in a Chinese American family. Sacrifice, hard work, and education are the pillars of my heritage. We are largely peaceful. Confrontation and conflict are anathema to who we are. Indeed, even politics is an extremely new phenomenon for us. That Chinese Americans have come out in droves over the armed robberies is a testament to just how hurtful these incidents have been. More than 100 people have been burglarized in 2016 alone. Do you know the pain of being an other? Because I do. Do you know the gratitude that one feels when one is finally treated and accepted like other Americans? Because I do. When I went before a judge earlier this year in a ballot challenge, the judge said that my family embodies the immigrant success story. Today, my mom is sitting in the audience. My parents lived the American dream, which wouldn't have been possible without the promise of security and safety. Small businesses need the protection of law in order to prosper and contribute to Philadelphia's success. But victims have a responsibility as well, and that is to fully recognize that the sins of a few should not stain the many. The acts of a few should not tarnish everyone else in a group, in his group, or race. Race is a characteristic that one has no control over. Thus, it is heartbreaking to suffer because of something one can never change about oneself. To hold a hearing and then to do nothing would be to allow deep emotional wounds to fester and grow into resentment. More resentment, especially of the poisonous racial kind, is exactly what we do not need more of in our country. Let us give all Philadelphians their assurance of security. What is life when you aren't even safe in your own home? What is existence when you have to look over your shoulder when walking down the streets of your own city? Surely the citizens of the greatest country in the world can live free from fear. This is not a matter of capacity, but of willpower. Every night before I sleep, I read a single verse from the Bible. Last night, I read the following words. For God did not give us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Han Pan, would you please testify? And Mr. B. Hong Guan, would you take a seat? You will be the next and last witness.
Thank you, Councilman O. Thank you, Councilwoman Jing and Councilman Mark Squealer. Sorry, I didn't know the other councilman's name. Okay, we have heard enough of the sufferings. My heart goes to those families. But remember, we live in Philadelphia. My heart also goes to those African American families. I think this is a social issue. It's not just Chinese American suffering. I agree with Councilman David O that and also with a lot of the people today, Chinese Americans are really targeted by violent crimes. But I think there should be a way how we should solve this problem. We cannot just only discuss the sufferings. We should also discuss solutions. I'm a graduate of criminal justice and sociology. So my suggestion is look at Philadelphia. We have more than 50% of African Americans live in poverty. So to solve this problem, we have to work together, Chinese Americans, African American communities, city council, police department. We cannot just blame to one particular group. We have to work together. I think the police department, they have a lot on their shoulder. And a lot of the crimes, there's like a nuisance, like a harassment. So the police, they are overwhelmed. If we can have community support groups, community town watch, and community connection networks, so we can solve some minor crimes like harassment, right away from the community. So I agree with Reverend Shine. The other gentleman said we need to build the connections between Chinese Americans and African Americans, and the community to the government, to the police department. We are here to work together. We're not here to blame each other. So I hope Philadelphia will be better. I have confidence in Philadelphia. I'm still encouraging people from China to invest in Philadelphia. So I really appreciate Councilman O, your initiative. I think Philadelphia, I don't think Philadelphia is Iraq. Philadelphia is Philadelphia. We should have hope. But also we have to pay real attention to the sufferings, to the victims, to the instance of burglaries and robberies, and the police department should pay real attention. And we work together. That's what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And finally, Mr. Guan.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Guan Bi Hong, the president of Great Philadelphia Chinese Association of Protecting Rights. Here, I think as a Chinese community leader, we should give David O applause because he created a history. Because this hearing, public hearing, is in the history, I think is the first time in Philadelphia. So let's give him applause. Thank you, David O. And also I appreciate some councilmen and councilwomen
stay here. I think all of you are very hungry, okay? Thank you very much. But for today's hearing, I have two suggestions. First, yes, we have so many vacant seats, and some councilmen and councilwomen left already. Why not they stay here to listen to the voice of our Chinese community? This is the first. The second, we need interpreter. We need the translation. I think here, 75% Chinese cannot understand the testimony of the law enforcement, representative from law enforcement. So for this kind of hearing, we need the interpreter to translate. Otherwise, so many Chinese people cannot understand. So this is the first suggestion. The second, for the solution of the no more violence, our target is no more violence. I think here, more police presence this crime. This is the first suggestion. So we need more police presence. The second, I think we need more bilingual policemen because most Chinese have a language barrier. So we need the city hire more bilingual policemen. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We were scheduled for a 2-hour hearing. I know we've gone to 3 hours because we have a 1 o'clock hearing. We are running a little bit over. I appreciate everyone staying. At this time, let me ask my colleagues if they have any comments to make in closing. Councilman Kim.
Thank you very much, Councilman O, and thank you so much for sponsoring the hearings today, and to my fellow council colleagues who are here, and thank you very much to all the witnesses who came forward, especially the victims' families. It was heartbreaking and heart-wrenching to hear and read about their stories of crime. They happen all over the city. It's extraordinarily painful to read and listen to people testify when it actually happens to them. You know, one of the things that I think that I certainly heard out of the hearings is a real need for communities to become organized and to work through solutions. I think one of the things that we are grappling with right now is, you know, differences of opinion about how safety is created. And while for many of us, I think we're looking at increased surveillance cameras and other types of efforts, other communities worry justly about increased police presence that may lead to unnecessary stop and frisk or civil rights infringements that other people have testified to. But what I want you to know is that we on City Council are going to try and work through those conversations. We just need you to be with us as we go through that. The other thing is that I heard you loud and clear, Mr. Hong, about the issue of language access in City Council chambers. It is very important, and it is actually a civil right for you to have language access here. We're working on that right now to make sure that that happens, and I'm sorry it didn't happen in enough time for us today. And then finally, I hope that what you have is a continued effort at organizing and working on a lot of these issues in combination with many of us on City Council who are really incredibly dedicated to seeing significant advances and progress in the ways we're working with language access across the city, with our police department, especially with 911 and with victims advocate services as you move forward through this. All of us are opposed to crime. Every single person in the city is opposed to crime. I don't think that that is anything. What we're trying to figure out is when this does happen, how can people feel validated, heard, and how can we organize for change? But I feel like this was an important first step. I'm very grateful to everybody who came out, and especially to individuals in the city department who are here, who are working to make it better. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman Kim. And next we'll have Councilman Derek Green.
Thank you, Chairman O. Thank you for this hearing, and thank you for everyone who was here to testify. I think one of the challenges that we have, and we've often discussed in this hearing, is the lack of information access and communication. Communication from business owners who feel that when they reach out to the police, their calls are not being answered, and also communication from the police and not understanding the best way to communicate. That's why earlier in the hearing I talked about having a meeting with the commissioner, Commissioner Ross, because I think the perception is from the business owner perspective, and this is sometimes shared in other communities, that when they call the police are not coming in a responsive fashion. And in that vital time when a crime occurs, that's when information needs to be gathered. And when you have a language barrier, information that could be gathered is not being gathered, and it leads to a perception that why should I call the police at all? And that's why I think it's so very important that there is a meeting with the commissioner, especially considering there seems to be an epidemic going on where specific criminal elements are targeting Asian businesses. And that's why I think it's very important to change the perception of how the police are interacting with business owners by having that meeting with the commissioner. And that way, out of that meeting, there can be specific opportunities to have a conversation between business owners, people in the community, with the police on an ongoing basis to address that language barrier and dialogue concern. So I look forward to work with my colleagues on that issue, and especially as we go into January, we go through the budget process. That's the time when this body, as a legislative body, can ask the executive body for those resources. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilman Derek Green. And Councilman Mark Squilla?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate your efforts here, and really want to applaud you on bringing this to light and having the opportunity for everybody to come in here and speak. But like Councilman Green had said, this is it's going to be like a five-pronged process. It's not one answer is going to be able to fix the situation, whether it's enforcement, police response, communication, community empowerment, city council legislation. It's a whole bunch of different things that we need to do to keep us together on this, but not forget what is going on until we get results that we are all happy with. So again, Councilman O, thank you for bringing this to the table today, and looking forward to continue working with everybody to make this a reality. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilman Squilla. And Councilman Blackwell, do you have any comments to make?
I sure do. You know, so many of these folks and I and Lucian before me go back so many years. It's a pleasure to see them and look forward to working with them. I'm sorry that it's under these circumstances, but you can count on us and you can count on the council to do what we can to ameliorate this situation and certainly work with you and moving forward. Thank you, and thank you both for introducing this legislation, and for all of you here for working on it.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman Blackwell. And so let me conclude on behalf of my chairman, co-chairman, Curtis Jones Jr. First of all, thank you for coming out today. It is really not us, but you, through your rallies, your advocacy, your continuous meetings, that we got to learn about the crimes that were being committed. We know that there's many more crimes. We know that they have existed for a long time, but people did not speak up. For whatever reason, they did not step forward. By stepping forward today, by stepping forward before today, by coming out in so many different ways, you are telling your story. The story you've told us today is one that you're here among us in Philadelphia, in our region, and that you're being victimized and targeted because you are Chinese, because there are perceptions, myths, blame that is being targeted at you. Secondly, that we have city services, we have an excellent police department, our police are working with our DA's office, our counties, our FBI, our U.S. Attorney's office, yet it's not enough. And when you call the language line and when you look for help, you are not getting the kind of service that you should be getting in comparison to the numerous times that you call, the many times that you have been robbed and burglarized, your lives threatened, your children threatened, people being beaten. Listen, I live in Southwest Philadelphia. If somebody came to my house, that would be a big problem for me because we have no cash. If they think they're going to beat it out of me and my family, they're not going to. They're just going to beat us because we don't have any cash in our house. I know that many merchants are very thin. That means they don't have money. And we have had instances in the past where families have been victimized tragically. They did not come up with the money. And so there were horrendous consequences. And so I thank my colleagues. I could not do anything without my colleagues. And I want to let people know that although you don't see all the council members here, this resolution was passed unanimously, and many council people have prior commitments, and they are listening, their staff is listening. The most important thing is, what are we going to do next? We have heard you, we have heard our police who are doing a great job, but we know we have a lot more to do. Finally, to our overall community, I think it is an important point to bring different perspectives. I don't agree with every testimony given, and not everybody agrees with me. That's how democracy is. We have to take different opinions and make it work. A lot of people do not put this into context. However, whether we're talking about issues involving women, whether we're talking about issues involving African Americans, we have to put it within historical context. And so when we have issues that may seem very simple to me, I have to look at it within the history of the people of our country. In particular, with the Chinese and with Asians, the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882 excluded Chinese, specifically, the only group of people excluded. That was not changed until 1943. And yet that law and many other laws that discriminated against the Chinese existed until 1968. The Immigration and Naturalization Act of 1965 was not enacted until 1968. I tell people on my staff, you're probably here because of the Immigration Act of 1965. Before that, your father and mother could not have come here. And so the issues that surround discrimination and targeting of Chinese Americans, as it has with African Americans and other people in our country, is rooted in our history. It is important to take up the opportunity to work with everyone in our city. And, you know, we have a wonderful city where there are so many people that support you, support your families, white, black, Asian, Hispanic. There are far more people who stand with you in your problems and issues that stand against you. We certainly have a lot of work to do. This council represents the broadest group of people in our city, 10 districts, 7 at large, and we will do our job to address this problem for you. You keep doing what you do. Thank you very much. This hearing is going to be recessed to the call of the chairs. Thank you for coming, and we'll be in touch with you.
Good job, Dr. Guan. Thank you, you too. What's wrong here? I need to qualify.